Welcome, everyone, to another episode of WRPL, All Things Consumed, a podcast where we talk about all the things we are watching, reading, playing, listening to. I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
And it's been a while since we've recorded. Not that any of you would know, because these are released very staggered. But I had some personal medical things going on and had to kind of bow out for a minute. What have you been up to this week? What can you possibly be doing with your time that isn't 3 hours a week with me?
You know, I always blank out on these parts, and I'm like, this is the one thing I need to be prepared for, and I have nothing. Oh, you got these?
Yeah, that's long. Yeah, I'll do a more fun intro. How about this?
Okay. Yeah.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to WRPL, where we talk about what we're watching, reading, playing, listening to. You know, all the things we are consuming. I'm Bronco Bustin' Ben, and with me as always is my sharp shooting Steve. How you doing there, Steve? Thanks. Is that a better intro?
Yeah.
All right.
I love it.
Well, I have been watching a lot of stuff, but it's more catching up on everything I missed while being stuck in a hospital and forced to watch movies on cable with commercial interruptions. So I watched all 4 Alien movies on AMC. Not that I've never seen those before, but I got to watch them edited and with commercials. So
the proper way to view them.
Absolutely. And I watched some stuff on Sci-Fi, like a submarine movie called Hunter Killer with Gerard Butler on Sci-Fi.
Is that like something he was in a long time ago?
No, this is like 2019 or 17 or something. It's not that old. Gary Oldman's in it.
What?
Common's in it.
So it's like a movie.
It's a movie.
Like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, but it's like a lot of these bigger actors are kind of like they're in the war room, and so they only had to shoot for like a day or two.
Okay.
But Gerard Butler's in most of it, but it's like submarines and Russians, and yeah. Unfortunately, the last half hour I had to mute it because my doctor had to come in and tell me about diagnosis and blood tests. So I don't really know how it ends. I mean, a lot of things went boom, boom, explodey, but
Right.
yeah, don't know how that amazing.
Your surgery or the movie? The penis enlargement went well, right?
No, they actually went negative.
Oh man,
It's inside me.
It's an innie now.
It is. But yeah, I haven't been watching too many new things. I have a few things, but I feel that your list is a bit bigger. So let's start with you.
It is. Well, before we get started on what I've been consuming, shout out to Michael K. Williams, who unfortunately passed away. Omar from The Wire.
Yeah, we missed that
bummer.
last time we recorded, I think. Or did it happen like right after?
I think it happened right after.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shame. He's pretty great in everything he does.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, he was like the go-to guy for HBO. I mean, just...
Was it Peaky Blinders was he in? Or what was the show that...
Boardwalk Empire.
Boardwalk Empire,
Yeah.
That's right.
Started out on... Well, he did an episode of The Sopranos, which I think was his first like HBO gig. But then that led to The Wire, which is his most known role. One of the all-time great characters, Omar Little. On one of the greatest shows ever made, and then did Boardwalk Empire and Lovecraft Country, and I think did some HBO movies like Bessie with Queen Latifah and stuff.
Oh, we can't forget his greatest role as Brooklyn bystander in Incredible Hulk.
Oh. Also, very small part in a movie we both really enjoy, Gone Baby Gone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forget that he's in that.
It's a weird little role that just kind of pops in and it's like, oh, he's in this? Cool.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, just a shame we didn't get to see more of him. And if somehow a miracle of Lovecraft Country comes back for a season 2, unfortunately he will not be in that. But
yeah, I don't see that happening. So,
yeah. But anyway, R.I.P. Michael K.
We also lost Norm Macdonald since then. There's been a couple people. There's like a guy from Sex and the City that I don't really know much about, but yeah. They're dropping.
Yeah, I mean, I was never like a big Norm Macdonald guy, but I think he was just before my time. Obviously, I was aware of him from like Adam Sandler movies and Saturday Night Live and stuff. But like since he's died, I've watched a lot of his like interviews and stuff, especially with Conan. Mm-hmm. And he does seem like a real funny guy, and I like that, you know, a lot of his jokes were like kind of out there, sometimes like a little inappropriate, but you know,
did you watch
the still level of comedy is there
when he's on Conan with Courtney Thorne-Smith?
Yeah.
And then talking about the chairman of the board. Just
board spelled B-O-R-E-D.
Just a great little interview. He was just on it.
The king of not giving a fuck.
Yeah.
But
yeah, R.I.P. to those two. Alright, what have you been consuming?
So, we've talked about it before, but we're not big fans of anime on this podcast.
Not
but there is the occasional one that I do enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And season 5 of My Hero Academia just ended. Not their strongest season, but still enjoyable if you like superheroes and anime. But I mean, it's the biggest anime on television right now, so I probably don't need to tell too many people to like check it out. But anyway, I'm glad the season's over. They kind of like didn't do a lot of big moments and diverged from the manga a little bit, in terms of like how like they didn't go as chronologically as they did in this or in the manga. But it's a good thing, because this arc coming up is like this big huge war arc where like I imagine it'll just be like the entire season, where if you read it, it's just like some of the biggest, coolest, most dramatic action sequences in the entire series so far. So next season should be pretty amazing.
That show has a great concept. It's just, I hate that studio house. Every character is so ugly looking. Every costume is ugly looking. And it just falls into all the anime things that I hate so much. You know, screaming, internal monologue, dumb, awkward, you know, boys in front of girls. It's just the worst. I hate it.
Yeah, but everything it has bad, like, it has all the things I don't like. And by all means, I shouldn't like that show. But I think, I mean, action is never the problem with anime. Like,
No.
It's the thing it does the best. I think it does have some great emotional beats. But the thing I just like about it is just, like, it's just really wholesome, in my opinion. Like, the only reason I think I keep coming back is just because it's all about good people who solely want to do good. Like, they never diverge from, like, I mean, they learn lessons and stuff and all that, but they just want to be the best heroes they can be and save as many people. They're not like trying to complete any other goals other than we want to help people. And that's what I like about the show. It's just, you know, it's not like, oh, is one character gonna like become a villain or, you know, whatever. It's just, nope, we're just good people and we like doing good things and saving lives.
Is Grenade Hands a good guy now?
He's always been a good guy. He's never not been a good guy.
But he's like an antagonist.
But he's the rival to the main character, and he's a dickhead, but he's a lot of fun to watch just because, like, he will fight anybody, which, like, doesn't sound like a positive quality, but, like, if you're gonna go into a fight, he's the guy you bring along. Like, he doesn't care if you like him, but he's gonna be the guy who saves a bunch of people because he can take out anybody. Or at least he believes he can take out anybody to some degree. But
all right.
So anyway, that's just a quick little thing. I don't have too much to say about that. I read issue 4 of The Last Ronin came out.
Oh yeah, is this when Donnie and Splinter die?
It is.
Cool. Don't
spoil anything?
Spoil it.
Okay. I'll say this is probably the weakest issue of the 4 so far, only because I feel like it kind of does, like, a lot of things happen really quickly. Like, the first 3 issues I felt like were kind of set up, and you get these nice flashbacks of how these turtles died. And, like, the scene with Donnie and Splinter was really cool, but it was just, like, all the futuristic stuff. It was just, like, it just seemed like it jumped ahead without, like, building to anything. Like, it could have used another issue, I think, maybe to sort of get from point A to point B. But the next issue is the finale, and I look forward to...
Oh, is it just 5?
It's just 5, yeah.
Okay. Well, for anybody listening who doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, it's pretty much a story with the original creators killing off all the turtles except for one, and it's Michelangelo. He's the last one left, and it's just recounting how the turtles were finally defeated. Pretty much.
Well, yeah. How his brothers and father died, and what his like revenge goal is, and where everyone, well, if anyone survived from like the old comics or whatever, like who they meet and how they're going to stop the Foot Clan because they have this hold on this futuristic, I guess, New York City or wherever they're at.
I don't like how futuristic it is. You know, it's like how far flung. And it's like April's what, 30 years older? How far in the future is it? Does it say?
I would say,
because if it's not 100 years, the tech doesn't work for me, I think.
no. I think it's only like 20 years or so, because I think, well, just spoilers, Casey dies in one of the issues, but April has a daughter, so she was pregnant before Casey died, and I think in this comic when you meet her, she's between 18 and 20. Like she's really young.
And her name's Casey as well, right?
Her name's Casey as well.
But does she go by like the letter K, the letter C, or is it just Casey?
I think it's just Casey.
Okay. All right.
And yeah, so really cool stuff. I want to see this animated into a movie of some kind, because I think it's one of the coolest stories the Turtles have done, and I'm interested to see how it plays out. I hope they stick the landing, and it's just, you know, where does Michelangelo go when this is over? Is this his swan song in this universe, or, you know, does he find some sort of peace in the end? We'll see. But
all right. You want me to do one?
Sure.
All right. Well, I'm gonna kind of backtrack it to more anime.
Oh.
Not my medium of storytelling, but on Disney Plus there is Star Wars Visions. It's 9 episodes of just different anime houses doing their take on a Star Wars story. And I didn't really care until I watched the first episode, and of course they start off so strong. Mm-hmm. The first episode is amazing, and I wish they could have maintained it through all of it, because there's about 3 that I really like. There's 2 that are just fine, and then there's 4 that are so awful that I would never ever rewatch them. They're incredibly bad for a multitude of reasons. But they are canon. They aren't. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Most of these characters you've never heard of before. This is not like talking about what Obi-Wan ever did. This is far-flung way past the last, or Rise of Skywalker. This is stuff in between episode 3 and 4. They're just like all spread out. They don't outright say it. You kind of have to look at the trivia in IMDb to find out for some of them. And they definitely have a much bigger Japanese influence. A lot of like the smaller towns look like Japanese buildings, not as futuristic as some of the movies are. And one of the nice things is all the lightsabers kind of have their own unique look. Some look like just straight samurai swords. Some look more like classic lightsabers. Some are a little more like long and whippy almost. Like they all have their own take on everything. There's really not much unless you go episode by episode. But there's one that has Alison Brie in it. Oh. And she is just like hamming it up. She is just like screaming at the top of her lungs, just like doing real big anime yells and stuff. And it is the most annoying thing I have seen in a long time. It is so cringy. And it's the type of anime that I hate, where 2 twins are fighting on top of a Star Destroyer in the vacuum of space. Doesn't matter, no spacesuits or whatever. And they're just having huge lightsaber battles. And she has a crazy crystal on her that's giving her like General Grievous arms and stuff. And so he has to get onto the nose of his TIE fighter and like warp speed at her upside down with his lightsaber so he can knock the crystal off her and then also split the Star Destroyer in half. And it's like the type of over-the-top anime stuff that I just hate. But then you look at the first episode and it's like a very calm and more Shogun samurai story, and it's beautifully animated, and it's just amazing. When we're done with this, I'm going to make you watch that first episode.
Okay. Well, I remember seeing like when it first came out, I think it's from that first episode of the Shogun looking one, where Like, I saw that, and I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. And then when I watched a trailer for it and saw, oh, it's a bunch of different anime styles, then I don't really care. And it's like, I like shows that will do different styles, but I just don't care about this universe enough to, like, I know none of this matters, and there's too much Star Wars crap. So I just had no real desire to watch it. Yeah. But I was like, oh, if they made that first episode, all of it, I was like, I could see that being real cool.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. Like, some look like Mega Man or Astro Boy, and they're really kind of cutesy and stuff. And then the one that with Alice and Brie in it looks like Kill a Kill, so it's like really pointy shoulder blades and stuff, and it's just like real ugly. And some kind of look a little more simple, like Naruto. So I like that it had a variety. It's just some anime houses draw really ugly characters, and some have really boring stories. But I'd say, give it a watch. If you love Star Wars, yeah, you should probably watch it. But they're not super long. They're like 13 to 20 minutes each. So even the bad ones, it's kind of like it's almost over anyways. But there's a lot you can skip. Really look at the IMDb ratings on all of them, and if it's like below a 7, you probably don't need to watch it. Star Wars Visions, Disney Plus.
I played 2 games while you were in the hospital. I beat both of them in the span of 2 days.
Nice.
As in, I played one game for 2 days, played another game for 2 days.
Yeah.
Not both of them in a day. First one I'll talk about is Unravel. It was $5 on the PlayStation Store. You play a person, and it's, if you love games like Inside Out or the other one from Inside Out people. Oh God, I'm blanking on it.
With the little boy, right?
Yeah,
little shadow boy.
And it's all black and white.
Yeah.
Oh God, why don't I know? Limbo.
Yeah,
if you like Limbo and Inside. Yeah.
Not Inside Out. Inside.
Right, just Inside.
Yeah.
Inside and Limbo. It's like that. It's all, walking across the screen and solving puzzles and everything, but it's much cuter. It's not creepy or like terrifying like those other games. So yeah, you play as a little yarn person, and basically you're just going through nature and solving these puzzles to collect these things that sort of they're like little pieces of yarn that you attach to the front of a scrapbook, and in the scrapbook all the pictures and notes in it are like faded so you can't read or see them, but as you collect these things, those pictures come into focus, and basically this piece of yarn is sort of reliving these memories from this old woman who had this book, and you kind of just see this couple's life, and like her going on adventures with her husband, and her husband get sick and stuff, and they have grandkids, and it's just a real beautiful, sweet game. Visually it's really appealing, and it's kind of fun, and like the use of the yarn's really cool. Like they'll like hook it so he can swing back and forth, and tie it, and like make a line so he can like shoot himself up. Like, it's really well thought out in terms of like the use of the yarn, even if the physics don't quite make sense.
Let me guess, there's a block at the top of a cliff, and you have to grab it and pull the block down so you could jump on and then climb up the cliff?
There's things like that, but it's not really a block. There's like, you move buckets and stuff, or like knock, or like you do a lot of climbing in trees, and so you like knock off twigs and stuff. So, and then you run into the most violent it gets is you occasionally run into an animal, like a bird will come and swoop and pick you up, and you have to like start back over or whatever. So if you like puzzle solving games, Unravel, it's only like a 6-hour game. It's really short, but real cute, and something anyone of any age can really enjoy. There's only 2 or 3 puzzles where it's like, I have no fucking clue like what to do. When it comes to those games, there's always something I'm just like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do here, and I'll have to like look it up. But so it's not particularly difficult, but does offer some challenges. So if you like something that's story driven and there's also no dialogue. So if you just like beautiful simplicity like I do, it's a cute little game. The other game I played is God of War 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One of my favorite games of all time is God of War, the newest one. And I never played God of War 1 through 3, which we talked about when we talked about the PlayStation announcements. So this was real cheap on the PlayStation Store, so I was like, you know what, let me give God of War 3 a try. And I gotta say, it's awesome.
Yeah.
God of War 3 is great. And like, I watched gameplay of God of War 1 and 2, And like all the fun elements are still there, but graphic wise just like doesn't hold up. But the fact that I got to play this on PlayStation 4, the graphics were still great, and just like the brutal murder of like these top tier gods was so fucking cool. Like it has one of the best openings of a video game of all time that I've played.
They're really good with their intros.
Yeah, like you're on the back of a Titan climbing Mount Olympus, and then Poseidon comes down, and he's got like spider water horses that you fight, and you kill like 3 of these things, and then you fight Poseidon, and then just beat him to death. Just phenomenal opening.
Yeah.
And then immediately get sent to hell, to where you have to like find and go through hell and fight Hades, and just like. And I'm a big fan of mythology, so like seeing all this stuff and how like everything is fully realized, and just the combat is just as fun. I mean, the Leviathan axe in God of War is fucking awesome, but like this is just as fun, even though you only have the Blades of Chaos really. It's not like a super long game. I think it was 20 hours or so, maybe less. It definitely seems darker than God of War was, but I think that makes sense because the first 3 God of Wars was just, I don't care about anything but vengeance and killing all these people who have wronged me, where God of War is like, I'm only killing these people to try and kind of like get me and my son out of the situation and sort of bury my wife, really. So tonally it was different, but all the elements are there. Like the through line between this and God of War is just, it's so impressive that they took this story and morphed it into something else, and still like made it just as fun and emotionally impacting and everything. God of War 3 is fantastic and still holds up. Highly recommend God of War 3 to anyone who loves action games or mythology or just badassery in general.
Isn't there a part where you have to like rip off Helios's head? Is that the character, or is it someone else?
Yeah, I think in the game he's called...
Or Mercury, or...
In the game he's called Helios. He might also go by Apollo in other stories. Or I think they're the same person.
It's a rapid press button and you slowly are ripping his head off, right?
Yeah, so he, I think, is the second god you kill. And you grab his head and you slowly rip it off. And then you use that head to stun your enemies, because you just, or like if you're in a dark room, he's the head you carry around. So he's sort of the mirror, like he doesn't talk to you, he's just straight dead, but he's a head you keep on you at all times.
Because in earlier games you get like Medusa's head, so you can turn people into stone and then break them and stuff. I remember doing that thing, and I'm like pushing it, and it was kind of taking a while, and I wasn't pushing it fast enough, so it's like I'm ripping his head off, and then it kind of like goes back onto his body, and then I keep ripping it again, and then I don't go fast enough, and it attaches himself. So it's just like, oh, this is really fucked up. Maybe I should just rip his head off.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the new God of War was violent, but it wasn't this violent. Like, this game is like fucked up. Not Last of Us fucked up, but just violent fucked up, because you like you said, you're ripping the dude's head off, and you're seeing like all the skin
tendons
and stuff peeling off.
Yeah, he just like splits things in half and just like really rips people apart in those games. And
if I remember correctly, when it comes to Hermes, you like cut off his leg and like stab him through the face or something like that, and then you just like take his shoes just so you could like run up walls and stuff. Zeus, you beat to the you can beat Zeus for like however long you want. It's just like the blood eventually just covers the entire screen to where you can't see anything, and all you just hear is a smashing of his face, and it just you have to like actually stop. And because I went for a good like 2 minutes, because like oh, it's gonna stop me at one point, but it just never does. So just a ton of fun and a great conclusion. And if they never made another game to this series, I wouldn't blame them, but I'm so glad that they did.
Yeah, the God of War 3 was my first introduction to a PS3 game, and just the leap from PS2 to PS3, it was just like, I can't believe how beautiful this game is. And then you go to the PS4 and you play the new God of War, and you're like, holy shit, how can they even top themselves?
Yeah, when they talk about PlayStation 5, I was like, I'm sure it's better, but there's no way the leap can be that different from 4 to 5, because especially in the past couple of years with just the release of Uncharted 4 and Last of Us 2 and God of War and everything. It's just like, these games look so beautiful. Like, how much better can they really get? So I'm interested to see if I play anything on PlayStation 5 and go like, holy shit. Yeah, but that might be also a thing. It's like, if I had a 4K TV, I might go like, wow.
Yeah.
But
I think you just start noticing like little particle things like, oh shit, look there's real fireflies in the background there, and look at the embers off this fire and stuff. It's like all those little effects are gonna just really stand out on PS5, whereas like character models, they're gonna look pretty good.
Yeah.
You could see a little more crease, a little more stubble or pores or whatever, but you could only get so good.
Yeah, my only worry is that everything looks so good when something's off, it just stands out dramatically, and it just, kind of takes you out of it for a second. Yeah. But we'll see.
All right. So, latest episode of What If?
Well, the past 2 episodes.
Past 2 episodes of What If, yeah. We didn't really even talk about, like, the Tony Stark Killmonger one. There really wasn't much to say.
Yeah, I didn't really care for that episode.
But we had...
But I wouldn't say it was, like, horrendous by any means.
Back to back, we had the worst episode. I thought the Doctor Strange one was my least favorite. I just found that one kind of boring, but at least visually it was kind of cool.
I think there was elements in that were good.
Yeah. I don't think it follows the rules of What If, because, like... we're not talking about Doctor Strange.
We're not.
We're moving on. But
that episode is fine only because the 2 capes have a fight scene.
Yeah. But we get Party Thor, or what if Thor Odin's son was an only child? And this was the most cringe-inducing, unfunny, terrible thing Marvel has probably ever produced out of any of their stuff. And Marvel's known for being, like, at least relatively funny. You get a couple of chuckles. Some of the jokes don't always land, but this was like every single joke is completely unfunny and just awful.
Yeah. This episode made me hate the show. It made me hate that so much content is being produced from this world, because I feel like it can only really go down. Like, I expect there to still be, like, great movies and stuff, and, like, a lot of fun things and things you didn't expect, and I hope Krang will be a cool villain for the next 10 years. But, God, this episode was the worst thing I've seen this year. And I know a lot of people are going, like, oh, it wasn't really that bad. Like, it was just kind of like a fun. It, like, doesn't matter. It's like, no, like... Everything about this show has been taken seriously. Like, if this was shot live action, this would be part of the multiverse. That's the whole point. It's like, now Loki happened, the multiverse exists. These are stories that are happening, at least in my mind. It's just, these are stories that we're not going to do in live action form, which is fine. But every episode has been taken seriously, except for this one, where this one is just a cartoon. And it's just trash. Like, I did not care. Like, I like the idea of, okay, Thor, this is the Thor that we get at the beginning of the first Thor movie, where he's, like, arrogant and cocky and a spoiled rich kid and everything, but he didn't have Loki to, I guess, ground him in some sort of...
Loki was always the troublemaker, so Thor had to kind of be the good son.
Yeah. But this is a full-grown man who's just like, oh no, my mom's coming, guys. Like, we gotta clean up the earth. And just like, you have the guy who destroyed Asgard wiping down the Statue of Liberty and like flirting with her. It's like, hey baby, where are you going? And you have all these characters who like exist in the universe who show up to this Earth party, which is fine, but like, they're all just gonna, like, Earth had never seen an alien, and then one alien lands, and then the same day, a billion aliens land. Everyone's just like, all right, cool, I guess we'll just party with aliens. Like, no one's worried about, like, a literal invasion that's happening, but as long as the invasion's fun, and it's a party, and it's just so stupid. And then Captain Marvel comes in, and is, like, fighting Thor, because, like, I guess Nick Fury calls her, right? Or who calls her?
Maria Hill does, because Nick Fury shows up, and he gets, like, smashed by Korg or something, so he's incapacitated. Yeah.
So they have a fight, which the fight was fine, but it's just like, if you're going to bring the 2 most powerful characters and then they're going to have a fight scene, like, I didn't want this to be the thing that we first see them fight. I punch you
across the ocean, and then I punch you across the ocean. Yeah. It was very Looney Tunes. And I'm glad they fought, because we haven't seen these characters fight before, and that has been a question of, like, well, who is more powerful of these 2?
That's what the episode should have been, like, you can make Thor a bad guy, or, you know, maybe Captain Marvel didn't go the good guy route. She joined the bad guys from the first. I really don't remember the story, but like you could have made one of those characters somewhat bad or like doing a bad thing, and the other person has to stop you, and you could have had this really cool fight. But instead, you just did Party Thor, and it's so dumb.
That's my my rewrite would be if Thor is an only child, maybe he is kind of like rebellious and he just wants to have fun or whatever. So Odin never really takes him seriously, but he's just like waiting for his dad to die because like he's entitled. He wants to rule Asgard, and so once his dad's asleep, he's like, "Here's my chance to prove to Dad that I am awesome." And then maybe Thor invades Earth because he knows he can take these people and make Thor the bad guy.
Yeah.
Maybe his like intention isn't like to enslave and destroy us, but to let everybody know it's like, I exist and I am all powerful and time to kneel to me. But now they just went with silly.
Or you could even have the I forget the guy who did Salter. Yeah, is the guy who destroyed Asgard. Like, have him destroy Asgard, and he's like, well, I like, or maybe even kill his dad. It's like, oh, I need to be king of something. Like, where do all my people go? I'll take Earth. Then he's like, okay, I'm gonna be. This is my new Midgard, or this is Midgard. It's now the new Asgard. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna be king of all of you. And that was kind of like Loki's thing. Is I'm gonna be the king of Earth, and just you didn't do it.
Nah.
And then, like, also, another thing I didn't like about this episode is all of the, like, the Natalie Portman stuff.
Mm-hmm. The Kat Denning stuff.
And the Kat Denning stuff was...
Like, she's the cringiest character in Marvel movies already, and they made her even worse.
Yeah. Like, I like Kat Dennings in a lot of stuff.
Some stuff.
That being said, I'm not, like, a huge... Not that she's been in a ton of stuff where I'm like, oh man, Kat Dennings in this, great. But just like anything I've seen her in, I'm like, okay, I like Kat Dennings. But yeah, so Natalie Portman's just whole thing of like, you just have a character who is supposed to be this genius physicist character, and she's the first one. She should have been the one who's like the gung-ho about like taking Thor down, but she just is like, oh, he's hot.
And we bang.
And then we bang, and it's like, wait, guys, like, let's hear him out. Like, we don't need to kill this guy. It's just like, you just made her like the dumb female character, and it's like, it's a shame. Like, she probably could have like been given more than what she was. Mm-hmm. It's just like, nope, she's just someone for Thor to plow. Yeah. And then the Kat Dennings stuff, like the idea of her marrying Howard the Duck.
Sure.
I kind of like.
That's fine.
It's just so out of place. Like, I just don't buy that those two would do that. Or, like, any human would just go, like...
Talking Duck, I'll marry that.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. The Howard the Duck movie was about Howard the Duck trying to have sex with Marty McFly's mom.
Yeah.
But, like, I believe Howard the Duck would hit on anybody.
Sure.
Like, that idea is fine with me. But then them just being, like, a drunk Vegas night, getting married, and then, like, having relationship problems, like... Who the fuck cares? Yeah. Like, I'm glad they bring Howard the Duck into stuff, but I hate this episode. Yeah. I don't like the show.
And one other thing, and it's with all the episodes, anybody who comes and does a voice that is the actual character, they sound weird in the show. Like, Chris Hemsworth sounded stupid as Thor in animated form. I buy it when I can see him live action, but he sounded like an idiot. And maybe it's because he was playing it a little more lighthearted, but
maybe he was trying to like capture the cadence from Thor 1. I can't remember. He really talked a little bit differently because this is kind of before.
Hey, they didn't give him the beard. Like, he had a beard in Thor 1, and he didn't have a beard here. I guess that's what happens when you don't have a brother. You just start shaving more or something. But then we follow this piece of shit, terrible episode with the best episode of What If, and it was What If Ultron 1, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
And at first when I saw that, I was like, oh, he's gonna drop the Sokovia on itself and plunge us into a nuclear holocaust or whatever. But it's like, oh no, what if he actually like got the Vision body earlier and he didn't even have to go that route? And this is cool. This is a cool episode.
Yeah. I I like seeing Hawkeye with a missing arm.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. I mean, yeah, you have Winter Soldier who kind of like owns that, but you saw all the heroes die, and so it's just like the two humans that are left, because I guess theoretically they're the least threatening to him. And then so the world is essentially just taken over, and so you have this post-apocalyptic situation where it's just Nat and Clint trying to save what's left of humanity, even though you don't see, I think, another human in the episode.
I don't think so.
But I once he gets the Infinity Stones, I like his look.
How did you feel about like Thanos showing up and Ultron is able to just like finish him off in 1 second?
I could go either way on it. Like I liked it kind of for the comedy bit, just because it's like, okay, why do this whole thing of like talking and having this epic battle? I can just kill him instantly.
Yeah.
Oh, I need that thing. Bloop, dead, and like didn't have time to react. I kind of like that about it.
I do too, and I know people's like, oh, Thanos used to be so tough, but now he's just like kind of made a mockery in this show. It's like T'Challa was able to convince him not to do his thing, and then Ultron is able to just laser him in half, and it's like, well, Thanos came in with 5 of the 6 stones thinking, I'm on my way to winning, did not expect to find this super mega robot, and didn't even have a second to react. Couldn't even think to like warp reality or whatever. And so I like that you just kind of like, okay, this is how you show that Ultron is a threat. He just pastes Thanos in a second.
Yeah, I like this more than I like the Thanos in the Star-Lord episode, only because you don't really see what T'Challa says to it. It's like,
sure,
he just kind of, basically that was written off as, oh yeah, explain it to me, and it seemed like a bad idea. And I was just like, wait, what? Like that was your whole purpose. Like, it was hard for me to just go like, oh, T'Challa just made a convincing argument to not wipe out, like, all those problems still exist. And then here's the thing where it's just like, okay, there's going to be no explaining. I'm just going to kill you instantly. Which, in the movies they try to do, but there was always some, big battle sequences you need to do, which, is fun when you're paying to see this, big action movie. But I like that. Boop, nope, it's over.
So there's I don't know, this is something I found, I didn't steal this from anybody else, but a little bit of a flub. So Thanos comes through that portal with all the stones except for the Mind Stone, correct?
Yep.
So that means he has the Soul Stone, which means he would have had to like kill Gamora in order to get it. But after, I keep wanting to call him Vision, but whatever, he's both. Ultron, once he gets the Infinity Stones, he goes from planet to planet, and he destroys Asgard and all the different places. He goes to the place with all the gold people, and the Guardians are there, like trying to survive,
right.
And Gamora's there. So how do you get that Soul Stone, huh?
He had a family dog he really liked that he. It was heartbreaking, but he had to kill Thanos Jr. or whatever.
What did it cost? Scrappy. Just a little thing, like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't.
Now I'm just imagining instead of Nat and Clint, it's Cat and Dog. I don't know what Nat and Cat worked, but I think there's just like a cat holding on to the dog's paw. Is like, don't you let go.
And I like that.
Mushroom Cloud.
Ultron just goes and destroys all the worlds, and he's just kind of like, oh no, what am I to do? I'm now a machine without a purpose. Maybe I made the wrong choice. And then it's just kind of like, wait a minute, there's a million other realities? Just kidding. I take that all back. I still want to do everything that I was doing. I'm just going to do it on an even bigger scale.
I don't recall. How does he figure out other universes?
He notices that the Watcher's watching him. He is able to. He's just kind of like, oh, and the Watcher's all like, damn, that guy really fucked things up, and he just kind of looks over and it's just like, who the fuck are you? And he's like, oh shit, and he's trying to
okay, yeah, because once he wiped out all of that universe, he's like, I reached a plane of knowledge or seeing or whatever. Okay, yeah. And that, when he breaks into his world, which I'd like. I mean, it's very interstellar,
Sure.
but like it's a fun little
Tesseract-y.
prism. Yeah, it's a fun little prism world. I thought their fight scene was great.
Oh yeah.
Like real cool. Like I didn't know anything about the
through the
Watcher.
different realities and-
Like it was all very like Mortal Kombat hitting them to another stage. But it was just
Oh yeah, that this totally kind of reminds me of the Injustice game.
Yeah.
This would be the Marvel version of that.
And I think if you made a fighting game, that would be like a fun thing
Oh, yeah.
to do with these characters. But that's a great way to like reference things and bounce around. Like this was another thing that was great about this episode is like really selling the what if multiverse is having the two characters who can literally travel through them and have these big fights and everything. It's like this guy is supposed to be a Watcher and now like multiple universes have seen this guy and everything. And yeah, I didn't know anything about his powers or what he could do, but clearly he's like a super powerful being.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering once again, I don't know anything about him or his deal. Like he was told he wasn't allowed to interfere. Who's his boss?
Probably the Living
God?
Tribunal, I think. It's a big gold guy with 3 heads. I think that's like the biggest of the big. I don't know. There's always like, oh, well, I'm the god of everything. Well, I have a god too. And oh, actually, my god is the universe we live in. And that guy, he's just nothing compared to it. There's always some bigger fish.
Whack.
Yeah.
But anyway, this episode didn't as much. I actually really, really like this episode. It's the best episode of the season. Did it save the show for me? No. But Thor put in the ground. This was just the flower coming from the dirt.
And I'm a total Marvel fanboy shill. I'll watch pretty much anything they put out until it's like consistently poor quality. I can let something like Party Thor go because it followed up with something so good. It's like, okay, yeah, they have their stumbles, but they generally are always so good with their stuff. So I will continue to suck the very large penis of Disney and Marvel.
For now.
For now.
So we'll see. I'm hoping that this final episode is very much like this last episode, only because it is basically just saying, hey, all those episodes you watched, well, now they're all coming together for a big final battle. Hopefully they just blend really well and they're not like over the top ridiculous or doesn't make sense or whatever.
I'm sure it's just Doctor Strange and the Watcher going like, well, let's go get Peggy Carter from this one. And
right, but I just mean like...
I thought this one was... Well, I always knew there was an episode coming called like, what if Gamora was Thanos? And I'm not sure if it's like, what if Gamora went after the stones or what if Gamora had his ideology or whatever. It's just like, saw a picture of her with his big like double-sided thing and the shoulder blades. And it's like, oh, okay, that's going to be the big bad when we get this group of people together. So I don't know how it's all going to come together, but I'll be very excited to find out in 2 days.
All right.
Yeah. Well, keeping on the Marvel train, I saw a new movie today. It was Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I know you were very excited and looking forward to this movie, being a big fan of that original one.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Steve didn't watch original Venom, which like I said, as a Marvel fanboy, I think is insane, but it's okay because that movie is terrible.
Look, if I spent my time and I watched 25 Marvel movies now, and there's also 2 Venom movies, I don't owe Marvel anything, all right? Like, I can be a fan of, a company's work and go, you know what?
Yeah. And for me, it's like being... like growing up with Marvel, I was more of an X-Men fan than an Avengers or anything, but I still read some Spider-Man comics and things like that. I was always more of a Marvel person than a DC person. Seeing now in my adulthood the things that I loved be the biggest pop culture thing since fucking Star Wars or Harry Potter, it makes me so happy. And so when other people are just kind of like, yeah, whatever, it's just another one of them Marvel things. It's like, no, you need to care more because this is something I care about. Like, I was talking to someone, she's like,
me.
She was like, I saw one of those Marvel movies, what was it, Snake Eyes or something? It's like, are you fucking serious? She's like, yeah, isn't it one of those? Like, no, why would you think? It's like, I don't know, it just kind of looks like one of those Marvel movies. Like, oh my god.
I watched one of those Marvel movies, Steel Shaq was in it. That's the Iron Man, right?
It's one of them old ones. But yes, I saw this movie, and I don't even know where to start with this movie because it's bad. It's very bad.
Well, let me just tell you, you can go through all of it. People at work were talking about the ending, so I know what the big end, which is like something we expected,
but I hate it. I hate it so much.
The people at work who were talking about it were like, dude, I am pumped.
No.
Like, they were so excited.
Tom Hardy, as this Eddie Brock, is terrible. And he plays Venom as well, and he's terrible. Like, Eddie Brock, not that I'm a super big Venom fan anyways, he's not one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, but Eddie Brock is a little more hard-nosed, and he's a good journalist, and he's a moron in this. He's just a bumbling buffoon. And Venom, being, the alien from outer space, he should be like the fish out of water character that doesn't understand how human things work. But he's the one that's all like, oh, we need to be superheroes and go out and save the people. I'll get a cape and a mask. And it's like, no, why does Venom know these things?
Why would he care?
Yeah, exactly. And,
like, just let me eat people.
Yeah. And that's like the one joke of the whole thing is just like, I want to eat people. You can't. Okay, well, I guess I'll eat chickens and stuff and chocolate. Oh, but the chocolate order's not in. What am I gonna do? And it's just them arguing, and it's not funny. No joke works. I could maybe about 10% of what Venom says I can't understand because it's just so garbled, and it doesn't matter anyways because it doesn't add anything. It's always just like, this guy's a dick, rah. And it's like they had no real script for him. It was just like, what can we throw in ADR in post?
Yeah, I'm imagining Tom Hardy trying to do like a Robin Williams and Aladdin impression kind of thing. Like, let me just do a bunch of bits. But it's like you're taking a drama actor and trying to make him like do comedy, which like sometimes works well, but
And I can't fault it as like, it definitely is hey, this is our most basic plot, and here's our villain. He gets his own symbiote. And he wants to go save his girlfriend and kill Venom.
Isn't it symbiote?
Symbiote, whatever it is. It's all of them. They all work. I use them it's like coupon and coupon, It doesn't matter. They both work.
Okay.
And it's his plot. It's just like, I'm going to go get my girlfriend. And so I go do it. And I'm going to go kill Eddie Brock. So I'm going to go do it. There's like no story to this. Like in the trailer, you see Venom freak out when he sees Carnage, and he's like, oh no, that's a red one. I can't do that. Do you know why he's freaked out that it's a red one? I don't know either. They don't explain it.
Oh.
They don't add any lore, no mythology or anything. It's just like, that's a red one, so it's bad. And Carnage calls Venom Dad because it comes from him, but it's just like, Cletus Cassidy just bit Eddie Brock, sucked up some of his blood, which had a little bit of the symbiote in it, and then it created a whole new thing. It's like, that's all it takes. So can someone run up to Venom and just like take a bite out of him, and then they get their own thing? And it just is so lacking on anything, and it's just more of the same from the first one. Oh, Eddie's still in love with his girl, and she's dating this guy that he doesn't like. All those same jokes again. It's exactly the same thing with just a red Venom. Instead of having a gray and a black one fighting each other, now it's a black and a red one fighting each other. And it's very stupid. And like, Cletus Cassidy's girlfriend is Shriek, who in the comics, she gets her own symbiote, and she's like yellow, and like her thing is like ultrasonic screaming. But that is like that's a good villain for Venom because that is one of his weaknesses.
Right.
But when it's paired up with Carnage, he's constantly just going like, hey, you can't do that because it hurts me. So she can't really use her powers around him. And it's such a bad mashup.
Mm-hmm.
And Woody Harrelson is terrible. His hair is awful. I mean, it's like the post-credit scene of the first one is really bad, but they decide to go in the opposite direction of bad. I mean, still heading down the same road of bad, but they're in a different lane. It's absolutely horrible. There is really no redeeming qualities, and it is probably my least favorite movie of the year, and I'm including Malignant on that list. So,
well,
it's bad.
You're much more of a Marvel head than I am.
Have I said that?
But so I'm not very familiar with Venom or Carnage's powers. I know they have suits that make them shoot gooey things and kill people. But obviously their powers are very similar, but is what makes Carnage so dangerous that the red symbiote is just more chaotic and like just dangerous? Or is it like it's just more dangerous and crazy because
he's on Cletus Cassidy. Because he's on a literal psychopath. And so, like, Eddie Brock can keep Venom under control, so it's like you just have the black Venom suit. Whereas, like, Cletus Cassidy, he's going to have tendrils going everywhere, and he's going to just be stabbed.
So he just looks more terrifying, but he's not necessarily more dangerous.
I don't know if he is. I think maybe their power levels are similar if you're like ranking them by numbers or whatever, but he's more dangerous because he's willing to go do crazy stuff.
Sure, I just meant like,
but power wise, I'm not sure.
Okay,
but Carnage was always a lot smaller than Venom.
Yeah.
He's thinner, and he's huge in this. He's way bigger than Venom. He's just massive, and he always has like Dr. Octopus tentacles going. And I always imagined him a little, not necessarily drippy, but like he was always just kind of like in a constant state of flow where he would just like be splattering and then turning it into spikes and stuff. And this, he's just like, I'm Venom with Dr. Octopus tentacles, and then I'll shoot some spikes at you. It's real bad. Cannot recommend it. Let's talk about the post-credit scene. So, Eddie and Venom, they retire and they're on the beach and they're just kind of like, we gotta get out of the city and we gotta go somewhere that needs help. Let's be superheroes. And Venom is all like, yeah, let's be superheroes. Let's go help people and whatever. And so he's like laying in bed and they're making fun of each other like always. And Venom's saying like, I have seen thousands of years and multiple planets, and you don't even know what it's like to be on my planet. It would blow your little mind. And he's just like, oh yeah, whatever. He's like, okay, well, I'll show you. And I was like, cool, we're gonna see
I like this.
The symbiote planet. So he starts to like do a thing where it's like he's gonna get a vision, and then all of a sudden they kind of like pop into, they're in a different like cabana on a different beach. And it's like, what the hell is going on? And then they look at the TV screen, and it's the J. Jonah Jameson revealing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And Venom like gets all close and he's like, ooh, him, and like licks the screen, and that's about it. So it's like,
so Venom knows Spider-Man?
Don't know. No idea. It's like, did Venom help cause this transformation through dimensions, or it just so happened it happened at the same time that, I mean, Doctor Strange hasn't even done the multiverse stuff yet. This is happening at the end of like Far From Home. So how did he get into this dimension?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it doesn't make sense now, but I wouldn't really worry about that in the long term, because like in the MCU, they've done things where they'll like show a clip or like sort of reference something that hasn't happened yet, but like you knew it was going to happen because they've announced stuff down the line or whatever.
Sure.
So this might just be like, okay, this will be something that'll make sense once this other thing comes out.
Yeah, I mean,
which is silly.
I guess by the time in Spider-Man, it may be like when Doctor Strange does his thing, it does revert back to when that reveal happens or something. But as of right now, it looks like he appears in the universe before any sort of multiverse things happen. Right. So.
Well, I get it. Like, this can be cool and exciting for people because, like, oh, now we're bringing Spider-Man into the Venomverse, and it's not just that; it's the Tom Holland apparent, the Tom Holland, like it's a thing, the Tom Holland Spider-Man. But what's interesting is how this could play into the multiverse of madness, or this might just, obviously this is more speculation, but that shot where everyone's been talking about, like, where he's on the bridge and he turns around and he's got the iron spider legs coming out or whatever, and everyone thinks like, oh, that's where you'll see Toby and Andrew. They're just digitally removed. What if instead of that it's just Eddie, like Venom is there with him, and he's going to be one of the people to help? I don't know if I want to see Tom Hardy in this fucking movie.
Yes, that's the problem.
At all.
I want Venom in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't want Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom in these movies. They're not good. He's only going to make it worse.
Yeah.
So, and I know I talked to you about this before, since we are getting Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and what to do with these characters, and I pitched that at the end, they're all going to survive. They're going to go back to their dimensions. Tobey Maguire goes back to his, and then let Sam Raimi give us a Spider-Man 4. And we had our little pitch on that with Kraven the Hunter.
Yep.
What was the thing called? Deadliest Game. Our idea for Spider-Man 4 is Deadliest Game, but Kraven the Hunter and Spider-Man on an island.
Yep.
That's all you're going to get. Then...
real quick, Sam Raimi's directing a Marvel movie, correct?
He's doing Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, that's the one? Okay, yeah.
And then I was saying, since we're not going to get an amazing Spider-Man 3, but Andrew Garfield's a good Spider-Man, let something happen with the multiverse where he gets put into Venom's universe. I think the darker tone of Amazing Spider-Man works better with Venom, and so then Venom
I also think visually they pair up well. Like, yes. I think the Lizard looks the same as Venom.
Yeah.
So we're like... You could put those movies next to each other and tell me they were in the same universe if I had never seen any of them, and I'd believe you.
Absolutely. So then Venom gets to stay in his universe. He gets his own Spider-Man. If you want to continue it and keep Andrew Garfield there, cool. If you want to send him back afterwards, whatever, at least you got to do it. And then, whatever Tom Holland does, whatever they're planning to do. I think he's got like 2 more movies in his contracts, or 2 more appearances, not necessarily 2 more Spider-Man movies. But, yeah. I think that's a better way of handling it than putting Venom in this. Because, like, they have Morbius. Freaking Vulture's in Morbius. So it's like they're going to eventually kind of have to, since Morbius is more of a Sony thing and not a Marvel Disney thing. Whatever. It's going to be bad. This I'm going to say, this is like the start of maybe they're biting off more than they can chew, and maybe they're doing things that, too much fan service.
Yeah, I mean, I told you this last week, not on the podcast, or I guess 2 weeks ago. It's like, I could see this being the deal that they had to make in order to get the character. It's like, all right, give us Spider-Man, we'll make 3 movies, and I promise you, like, it will lead to your universe connecting with ours, or, like, if ours does well, you can come in and we'll save your shitty property, that kind of stuff. But the downside is, like, okay, well, now we're bringing in this crap that no one's really that excited about, and it's only gonna like water down our stuff. It's not gonna make their stuff better. It's just gonna go like, okay, well, now I have to see their crappy stuff because it's connected to the stuff I actually do like.
Yep.
I can't see this being good in any way unless this is like, okay, this is just like a one-time deal sort of thing, where you get this because you gave us this, and then that's it. Hopefully that's the case.
Hopefully.
But we'll see. I mean, the only thing that could be good from them teaming up with the Venomverse is that if Eddie Brock and Venom come into the MCU and like leave part of the symbiote behind, or the symbiote leaves this Eddie Brock and joins a different one,
sure,
or just not even Eddie Brock and just attaches to someone else, that's fine. Like, you can maybe work something like that.
Yeah.
But to do it, we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know if this will be. I doubt it'll be a good thing.
Yeah. Two more things I want to say is, one, I was very excited for Andy Serkis to be directing this. But
I love Andy Serkis.
He doesn't bring anything to this. This could have been the director of Ghost Rider or the director of the first Daredevil movie. There's no flair to this at all. It's just very generic. So I'm very surprised he attached himself to it at all. He didn't bring anything to the table. And 2, Venom is really ugly looking in this. He does not look like Venom. His face is like so small, and his eyes look bad, his mouth looks bad. Like, Venom needs to have the big, hanging, drooling jaw with the tongue coming out, and he's just so tight and neat, and it's awful. Really, really bad. And that's all I gotta say about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that, like, I understand why Andy Serkis is directing sort of these heavily CGI movies, because, like, that's the world he knows and where he's come from. Like, he's made an entire career out of being the CGI guy. But he's worked with such talented directors, and he's also put in some of the best performances on screen as someone who's, in a way, not even there. And the movies that he's made so far haven't been particularly visually appealing, or, I mean, not that there's anything necessarily wrong with the acting in said movies. It's just there's nothing, like, really stood out. Just, like, someone with clearly so much talent for the craft behind the camera, I want him to do something more, and I hope he finds a project that, like, really lets him shine outside of Jungle Book and the Hobbit movies, which he only co-directed, and then this. Like, I don't know if he needs to do stuff that isn't CGI, or just needs to find maybe something that isn't an established property.
Yeah, but what's his passion project? Because it just seems like this is a paycheck movie, because he didn't do anything unique. Like, I can see Sam Raimi doing Doctor Strange, like, oh, I could see him bringing something to that franchise, but Andy Serkis didn't bring anything to this, so it almost seemed like they hired him because, wow, that's a weird choice. As long as he gets it done, who cares?
Do better, Andy Serkis.
Yes,
I believe in you. All right, we have one more movie to talk about before our main topic.
Yes, please regale me with this wonderful, wonderful movie, which I was going to watch and be a part of this discussion. I just couldn't make myself pay for this movie. Where'd you go see it?
I saw it at the one by the mall.
Oh, really? It had it there?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see it. Oh, one last thing for Venom. My theater was packed, and I was like, what about the next showing? Like,
everyone was just cackling at all the jokes, too.
Yeah, really dumb jokes. Like, oh, God. Like, okay, you know, the Eternals trailer played, and you know the part where he's just like, oh, what's this made out of? Vibranium? And he bashes it, and he's like, no, IKEA fall collection. People thought that was so funny. And it's like, that joke, it's like, it maybe works one time as an improv, but not as, like, an actual joke in the movie. And it's just written for dumb people who will laugh at the most banal things. Oh, and there was a fuck ton of kids in this movie. They were, like, little kids. And the trailers, they were showing trailers for, like, Halloween Kills and stuff, so, like, some adult stuff. And there was this one little shit. He was like, it was the second trailer was on, and he's just like, can we watch the movie now? And Mom's like, no, we gotta watch the trailers. And starts screaming because the movie didn't start. And then the movie's got 20, 30 minutes left, and he's like, can the movie be done now? No, it still has a little more. Starts screaming again, and then I think it may have been a different kid, but you could hear him, like, drop his Slurpee all over himself, and he's just like, you just hear it going, like, plop, 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 and, like, I don't understand how people can bring children. I know it's only PG-13.
You're about to just become your own Cletus Cassidy.
For real. And just, like, tentacle spikes in all these children's faces. It was really annoying. And I had to sit in the front row. It was either sit in the front row all by myself, which was great, or sit in between people. And it was like, I'm not sitting in between people. So not only did I get to see ugly tendril special effects, I got to see him really, really close. And Tom Hardy's weird face, like, he looks like he's gotten the shit kicked out of him lately, or he's, like, been boxing or something. He looks really beat up in this movie, and I know that's kind of the thing at the first one, like, he's never really a handsome dude, and he's always really disheveled, having to deal with his thing, but it looks like before every take he went a couple of rounds with someone. He just looks, like, puffy, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, like, he's one of those actors who I see in some things and go, like, damn, that's a good looking dude. And then I see in other things and go, like, is he good looking? You know? I mean, obviously he's very muscular and stuff, and, you know, and British, but sometimes just like, oh, you know, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Not all there.
But I will give the movie credit. There's no scene of, like, him taking off his shirt and him being like, you know, Chris Pratt ripped or Chris Evans ripped. It's just like, nope, he's just sweaty in a hoodie all the time. All right, let's talk about Dear Evan
Progress
Hansen.
for men. Yes.
The
not being objectified. It's about time.
Let's talk about Dear Evan Hansen.
Dear Evan Hansen. All right. So I enjoy myself a good musical. I like to head up to Broadway from time to time. And Dear Evan Hansen is like one of the biggest musicals in the past few years.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Dear Evan Hansen is a musical about a boy who pretends to be...
Boy
in quotation marks, a boy in high school who has like social anxiety and depression, and pretends to be the friend of a kid who has killed himself. And his family meets him and asks him about their son because they didn't know his son had any friends, even though he actually didn't have any friends. And Evan has now entangled himself in the life of these people and their daughter, who he's had a crush on for a while, and the problems that arise from that. The pluses. The music, I think, is great. I think all the songs are fantastic. And I think his performance is fantastic. He was the actor who was the original in the show. But I think when that show first started, he was like 21, so it made sense. And now he's 31, playing a high schooler, which like everyone online seems to have a big problem with. And like, yes, his hair is stupid, and he doesn't look 17, 18 years old for sure. But I think he's good enough to where I pretty much forgot about that. So his age didn't really bother me. Like, movies for the past 100 years have had people really miscast in terms of age or look or whatever. Like 90210 was all that stuff.
Look at the original Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire looked like a 30-year-old man, and he's supposed to be in high school, but you cast everybody else in the high school that also looked like 30-year-olds, then it doesn't matter. But when you cast a bunch of 17, 18, 20-year-olds, and then you drop this 30-year-old man with a terrible wig on, it looks like an SNL sketch.
Well, either way, his age didn't really bother me. And I actually think everyone's performances in this were pretty good. The downsides is that I've seen the show kind of. I never saw it live, but like you can see a bootleg version of it on YouTube, so I watched some of that to sort of get some comparison. And what's great about that show is there's a lot of comedy in it. This movie is like no jokes the entire time.
Really?
Like it's kind of just all downer all the time. And that's unfortunate. Like there's this, in one of the first scenes, he runs into his crush, and in the play it's played up for comedy. Like, you know, his nervousness is kind of funny and endearing. And, you know, how he just like, oh God, and just like shuffles away. But in this, like, she says hi to him, and he practically like is gonna like vomit on her, and it's not like he's gagging or anything, but just like he looks terrified of her as opposed to just nervous around her, and he's just like practically like shaking, and then just like scurries away. So it's just all that stuff, like, and just your missed opportunity of making this lighting the movie up a little bit and making the character of Evan more enjoyable to watch, since the entire movie is pretty much just him. You're not like really cutting away to other characters too much, so you lose a little bit of that, and the movie just goes on a little bit too long. I wouldn't say that it overstays its welcome. I think a lot of people that I've seen online have said like this movie is long.
How long is it?
It's like, I think it's 2 hours and 11 minutes, something like that. Maybe pushing towards 2:20. I was never bored, but they also did cut out 4 songs from the play, but they added a new song, and actually the new song's pretty good, and I think it works well. They sort of gave they cut from the stage show. They sort of cut out some characters' screen time, but gave screen time to other characters. So there's vast differences from the show to the movie, but I thought it was, I actually thought it was really effective. I think a lot of people, like everyone's complaints for me didn't bother me, and I don't know why that is, because I think a lot of people said oh, this is just overacted melodrama and everything, and it's just trying to get you to cry, and just like, oh, it's such a downer. But like, when the story's about a kid who has depression and wants to kill himself and is dealing with like all this other stuff, like, you're kind of, that's what you're gonna get. Like, like, why wouldn't this kid be sad and crying, and like, why wouldn't his real emotion not make you feel that? Because like, that's the whole point of trying to do like an effective, like, that's quality acting. If like, this person's sadness can also make you feel sad. It's like, if you cry in a movie, that's great. Like, that's what should happen. So I really want you to see this so we can, like, I want to hear your opinion, because I think everything I like about this movie you would hate.
Okay. Well, I mean, we could not talk about it and wait for me to see it.
It's fine.
Okay.
I think if you're a fan of the show, you might not vibe with this version. I think if you're a fan of musicals typically are upbeat, and the music sort of brings, even when there is like a serious moment, sort of brings you up. This is not that, so even if musicals are your thing, it might kind of bum you out. But I think as a movie, there's things about it that work, and I understand the changes that they've made, and I still think all the music holds up. The opening song is like a big famous song from the musical, but it's not the song that opens the show. But the song that opens the show is called Does Anyone Have a Map? And it's just about like the parents' perspective. It's just like, oh, my kid is crazy, what am I gonna do? And then it cuts to the other parents. It's like, oh, my kid's such a bother, like, what am I gonna do? Like, does anyone have a map to raising children? But like,
God.
The opening...
See, I thought it was gonna be like, oh, it's the first day of school and I don't know where my classes are. Does anybody have a map? But it's like,
it is the first day of school, but it's from the parents. So it actually, like, I like that they cut that song, because the waving through the window, which is the opening for the movie, is like the big sort of one of the big known numbers. And but the problem with it is, waving through the window is sort of about like social media, and like you're waving through your screen, and there's a line that's like, I'm tapping on the glass, and that's like you tapping on like Instagram and stuff. But like on the stage, there's a lot of screens behind them, and so like you're seeing the social media posts, and like that, it's like no one's noticing me, even like no one, because everyone's like focused on their phones and the world that's not right in front of them. But now it's just like you don't get any of that in the movie. Like, no one's looking at their phones. Like, the song's about like, oh, I'm not feeling seen, and you have him walking through school and everyone's walking around him, and so like the message is still there, but like it doesn't make any sense with the like lyrics of the song, because it's kind of more encompassing, where this is just like, oh, like I'm a lonely kid. So that didn't quite work. But yeah, I really can't really sell you on a movie that you haven't seen, and I know it's not your thing, so it would probably be a hard watch for you. But I think the performance is there. I do want to make one note about his look, though. And it's not about him being old, it's about how silly he looks. Like, there's a shot in it where he's like running through a forest and he's like smiling, and it just reminded me of Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder. And it was so jarring, because I was like, in another movie, like, it almost, like, that whole shot just reminded, like, it looked like a fake trailer kind of thing, where like, this is an Oscar-winning movie about a kid with like a mental disability, and it's like, yeah, he's got mental health issues, but he's not. Yeah. So, but I was watching that bit, I was like, this looks so weird, because it's a 30-year-old man like running oddly through a forest with a big smile on his face, and
So my problem watching the trailer, because I heard a bunch about it, and I saw pictures and little gifs and stuff, and it was like, wow, this looks ridiculous, but I never bothered to watch the trailer. So I did, and to me it feels like it is really manipulative, in the way where we're supposed to be on the side of a kid who is just lying to these people and giving false hope of what they thought their son was, and he's trying to bang this dead kid's sister and stuff, and like, how is this our lead? How are we supposed to care about him when I don't care about his mental problems, when he could have just told the truth and said like, oh, I'm sorry, there's a miscommunication. These letters, I write them to myself. They weren't anything to do with your son. I'm sorry, but no, I'm a creepy weirdo, and I'm gonna insert myself into your lives because you need whatever bullshit I give you. So, does it play that way?
No, well, I think they do a good job of explaining why things led the way they did. Like, when he first meets his parents and they, like, you know, we found this letter that was written to, like, Dear Evan Hansen, which was, you know, to himself. And he tried to tell him, it's like, no, he didn't write this, which they took as in, like, oh, he just can't believe that he would have killed himself. Mm-hmm. So he, like, tried to explain himself, but, like, they wouldn't sort of let him. And so he was just, like, you know, because we've established that he's sort of an awkward character and, like, doesn't know how to, like, interact, he's just kind of like, okay, yeah. And then there's that lie spiraled out. It could have just been like, yeah, I knew your son and I'm sorry he's dead and whatever. And that could have been it. But then they invite him to his house. And then, there's the girl he likes. And then it just, like, tells a story. And, like, well, now he's already here. He can't, like, just say, oh, I lied. Like, that would have been the easy thing to do. But, like, you know.
Yeah. Then there's no story.
Then there's no story.
But it's hard for me to, like, watch a story like that.
Yeah. Well, and this is another thing from the stage to this movie is in the stage show, his friend character is sort of giving him more shit about this and kind of going like, dude, like, this has gone on too long. You need to stop. Like, you need to tell them or I'm going to, like, rat you out kind of thing. And in this movie, they don't do that with him. But in the stage show, at the end, it's like he doesn't, like, he comes clean and everything, but it's not like he really, like, learns his lesson. It's just he comes clean, and the next scene is the girl kind of forgiving him, and they, like, go off to college or whatever, and it's just, like, over. Like, there's no sort of real comeuppance or anything. It's just like, I'm sorry I did that, basically the end. Where this one, he actually sort of does more. He's not, like, let off the hook as much. Where in the movie version, he, like, goes on social media and, like, says, like, I lied about everything, and so, like, he announced it to everyone, because in the play it was just kind of like you never really knew what happened after he told the parents, and then he, like, contacts people because he's like, I want to learn about the kid who killed himself. I can't remember his name at the moment. So he, like, takes steps to try and make amends for what he did, not, like, necessarily, you know, ask for forgiveness or make things right in some movie magical way where it's like, okay, you've done this thing, now we forgive you, we can be boyfriend and girlfriend again, or anything like that. So he, like, contacts anyone who knew him, learns about him, sort of tries to recapture the memory or make his memory alive. And then there's even, like, a video that he sends to his parents that sort of gives his parents some closure that wasn't in the stage show. So there's, like, the movie does some things right, but I think loses a lot of stuff good that the stage show had. And so it's just kind of like, the show is probably better than the movie, but I think the movie did do things that made sense to me as to, like, why they cut those songs, why they went this route, and gave the character a little bit more. So I think people need to focus more on the positives of it than just the negatives, but I get all the complaints about this movie. I just don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be.
Two questions.
I talked for way too long.
No, not really. Does he get to hook up with the sister?
So they do. You never see them, like, have a sex scene or anything. Like, they do go on dates. And, like, they kiss. I don't know. I can't recall if they say how long they've been dating. I don't think it goes longer than, like, 2 months maybe, or whatever. Probably less than that. So I don't know if they, like, hook up per se, but, you know, there is a montage of them, like, going on dates and being together, and, like, they're in school, like, holding hands and stuff like that. So they, like, everyone knows they're together. They go to, I don't know if they go to prom together or they just go to a school dance.
Okay.
But I think they do all the sort of classic teen things. I can't see him, like, getting late, though.
No, I guess it's like an under the table hand job and him being
like, if this kid has as bad social anxiety as he does, like, I can't imagine him in his
she would
first
reach
sexual
for
experience.
his zipper and he would come in his pants, probably.
But the whole thing, like, there is a song where they sing to each other, and it's about, like, all we do is talk about my brother, let's just talk about us. And she's like, I like you for you. And he's like, as long as you like me for that and not because, like, I gave you comfort in the time when your brother died. And so, like, yeah, they basically date under the false pretenses of, like, you knew my brother and, like, you're a nice boy. And she finds out that he lied about the whole thing. So obviously, but, like, they don't get back together, which is what I like. It's not like they have a scene at the end where they're, like, cool, but they just go their separate ways.
Okay.
But yeah.
Is it?
Yes.
Is there a scene where after he comes clean, he gets slapped by the mother or the sister?
No.
Damn it! You need that scene. We trusted you.
They're just obviously very upset, and I think the daughter storms off, and the mom's just kind of just like, I think you should leave now. To which, you know, he does. And you never see them interact again.
Well, if you were going to rate this movie, what would you give it? Not compared to the live action as its own thing.
This is hard because I guess a B-. Because I would say it's not something I would necessarily want to rewatch anytime soon because it is not a fun movie. Like, it really could have used some comedy to lighten up the subject matter. But I think his performance, regardless of his age, is a good performance. And I love all the songs. So I think as a fan of musicals, I'd give it a B- because it is still enjoyable if lacking in other areas.
Did you see that stuff? And I'm assuming it must have been just a fake article, but that they were going to like deep fake him and make him younger.
Oh, I did not see that.
Oh. Do you think that would have helped?
No, I think it would have been more distracting. I think either way, you're kind of screwed. So why spend the money on the deepfake stuff?
Okay.
Because either it's going to be deepfake and you're going to be like, oh, he looks like Robert De Niro in The Irishman, or you're going to go, oh, he just looks like a 30-year-old guy. Okay. But we don't have to spend money on it now.
All right.
I think they could have just leaned into his age and gave him a normal haircut like he did in the show, and it would have been just as fine.
Yeah, there's something about that haircut. I'm like, ooh, that's so familiar.
It's the Cletus Cassidy from the end credits haircut.
Yes,
the first Venom movie.
But there's something else I've seen that has like his mannerisms and that dumb haircut, and it's like maybe it's a flashback from New Girl or something like that, and someone just has like a dumb haircut to show, oh, look at the time period we were in. But I don't know, something about it.
Well, and we didn't like. There's movies where older actors play younger, and it's used for like Wet Hot American Summer is one of the greatest comedies ever, and like the whole point is like, yes, these 30-year-olds are playing 14-year-olds, like that's part of the joke. And I think you could have done something where, you know, if this movie had more comedy, the age thing wouldn't have bothered me, because now you're taking everything so seriously. Well, why didn't you take the age seriously? But once again, I think his performance is good enough to where I forgot about his age and look, because I don't think he like looks older than a lot of other stuff I've seen. Like you said, when we talked about Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire looks 10 years older than
Kirsten Dunst, or
than Ben Platt does in this movie. Like, Peter Parker is old as fuck in the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's only like 24, 25 when he filmed it. But you also have like Flash Thompson, played by Joe
Manganiello, who was a monster. Like, no high schooler is that size.
Exactly. So it all works. And in preparation to watch,
I still don't think it works, but okay.
It's not as jarring, I think. In preparation for Venom 2, I rewatched Spider-Man 3.
Okay.
I was just like, let's watch a different Venom movie. And there's a part in the beginning where, you know, he's doing his narration like, hey, it's me, your friendly neighborhood, you know the rest. And he's just like,
everyone loves Spider-Man. I got the girl. I'm doing good in class. And he's like in Dr. Connor's class. And there's people like, shooting spitballs at him and like reflecting a light in his eye. So he raises his hand to be called on by the teacher and stuff. And it's like, this is like an advanced science class. Why are there like bullies in college fucking with this dude? And it's just like, it's hilarious. I love that movie so much. It's so incredibly bad. And my roommate was here with me. She had never seen it, and she watched a good portion of it because she knew about like, him dancing in the street and the finger guns and stuff like that. So she wanted to see that. So she actually sat and watched a bunch of it and was kind of having a good time with me, because that movie is just real stupid.
Yeah, I feel like maybe now, in retrospect, that movie can be enjoyable because of how, like, those Spider-Man movies were, at the time, the pinnacle of superhero movies. Like, yeah, there was the original Batman movie or whatever, and then Batman Begins, I think, came out 2 years before Spider-Man 3 came out. I think it was 2005, and then Spider-Man 3 was 2007.
Yes.
But it was before the big MCU boom. So but those were like the biggest movies. And now everything after it is just like, there's so much good stuff to where, yeah, like this is bad in comparison, but it's fun in retrospect because of like how silly, like this was the best of the best, and now it's just like mediocre at best.
I think a lot of people, they look back, or they used to look back at it and go, oh man, Tobey Maguire as all emo and stuff, that's so stupid. That's the worst thing about this movie. And everybody just kind of forgot about everything else. It was like, that was such a cringy moment that nothing else mattered. But I think people are more accepting of that because, like, Peter Parker's not a bad dude. His worst instincts are maybe just to be a little more cocky. And so all that stuff makes sense. And then when you kind of accept that and look at everything else going on, then it's like, oh God, yeah, Sandman was tied to Uncle Ben's murder, and why is Gwen Stacy here? And it's like, it was just way too many characters for one movie, and it's like trying to wrap up this whole Goblin saga, and it just doesn't work. And like, I love Aunt May in those movies, but she is like unwatchable in part 3. I have to fast forward through all of her scenes because she just goes on and on and on. It's just bad. But I love that movie. I love the effects. I love everything about it. I like Topher Grace as Venom. He's corny, and I love everything. It definitely needs a huge rewrite and no studio intervention, and Venom probably shouldn't have been in it and stuff, but I love Spider-Man 3. Do you have anything else to say about Dear Evan Hansen?
I don't.
Do you have anything else to say about Spider-Man 3?
I don't.
Okay. All right, well, before we get to our main topic, we have a sponsor.
Ben, you like plants, right?
I do.
Well, what if I told you that you can find love through plants?
I'd call you a liar.
Well, you're wrong. Because today's sponsor is Where My Hose At, the new dating app for gardeners. Set up your profile and let love bloom. No more swiping left or right. Instead, pluck flower petals to find out, do they love me or do they love me not? Match, meet, and make an arrangement. A flower arrangement, that is, and see if you hit it off. Looking for that dirty boy or girl? Well, none are dirtier than the people who work in dirt. Play your cards right, and you'll be planting seeds in no time. Visit their website and use promo code WRPL to receive 69% off your first month of premium service. The 3 things that plants need are sunshine, water, and a little love. Download Where My Hose At today.
Well, as a main topic, we didn't really have any major release to talk about, but there was something that we both consumed and figured, fuck it, make it the main topic.
Yes, accurate.
So we watched Netflix Midnight Mass.
Not Black Mass.
Not Black Mass. No matter how many times you Google it, you will not find this series under the name Black Mass. Midnight Mass, directed and written by Mike Flanagan, who I absolutely love. Everything he does, he kind of kills it. Most known for The Haunting of Hill House and
Bly Manor.
And Bly Manor on Netflix. But I think some of his better stuff is Oculus, the Killer Mirror movie, which is
fantastic. Have you seen Oculus?
I have not. Because of his continued quality of shows that I've seen, it has made me want to check out his movies. Oculus is one of those things like I could probably go either way on, but I do want to see Hush. Hush looks kind of cool.
Hush is amazing. Having just a woman who can't speak or hear being tormented by an intruder is fantastic, and how they play with her senses, and she's a writer, so she also kind of like thinks things in advance, and so you kind of see like, well, if I run out the front door, what's going to happen? And then, oh crap, he's going to kill me that way, so let me write it back, and how can I write myself out of this situation?
And I imagine the whole movie takes place in a house.
In a house,
essentially,
yeah.
right?
Pretty
That's
much.
my favorite shit.
Yeah.
So
He also did for Netflix Gerald's Game. Have you seen Gerald's Game?
I have not, but I remember you telling me that you really, really liked it.
It doesn't have a great ending, but I blame that on Stephen King. That's his story. And then he did Ouija Origin of Evil.
No desire whatsoever.
Ouija 2, which, who cares? Ouija 1 is terrible. It's just another one of those dumb Blumhouse, we'll make a horror movie based on anything. But he actually elevates it incredibly. It's a very good sequel. He's very good at that. And then he also did Dr. Sleep, which Dr. Sleep was a good book.
I did see Dr. Sleep. Dr. Sleep was fine for me.
Yeah,
there was things I liked in it, but I didn't love it by any means.
Yeah, it's so he works a lot with Stephen King, and he does a lot of stuff with Netflix. And his latest 7-part miniseries is Midnight Mass. What's Midnight Mass about, Steve?
Midnight Mass is about a guy returning home after spending some time in prison, and his home is on this small island with a population of about 127 people,
yeah.
I think, like that. So not many people, and he's just trying to get his life back together, and his parents are very religious and want him to go to church, and a new preacher comes to town, or a new pastor comes to town, and sort of starts sprouting miracles, and some creepiness starts arising in the town and is causing some trouble, and they got to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, some real shenanigans going about. I didn't know much about this movie going into it. Practically nothing, just that Mike Flanagan was involved. So I didn't know what to expect, and right away I kind of really enjoyed the atmosphere and the location. And
yeah, I wanted to visit this town. Oh, go ahead.
I want to live there. I would love. I mean, I feel bad for any child who's raised on an island of 127 people. But
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I want to just like own some properties and make like Airbnbs for people, because it just seems like such a fun, chill little island to live on. Yeah. Except for all the crazy religious stuff.
Yeah. My thoughts on the place was, I want to live there. Let me look it up to see if it's real. It's not a real town.
Boo!
I think the island, I think, is real in Canada somewhere, but yeah, it doesn't actually exist. And then I thought, like, if this place actually existed, they would have bought all these people out and turned it into just like a private thing. Not that it's necessarily like a beautiful place, or like, I don't think rich people would necessarily want to live here, but I could totally see it being sort of like, oh, for $1,000 a night, here's a private little getaway where whatever. And then my last thought was, so all the people on this island, like, I imagine they're all like related to each other, right? Like, there's only so many people you could date before bloodlines are mixing.
Sure.
But, they do have a ferry that goes to, it seems like there's a city right across the water.
I think there's 30 miles.
30 miles, yeah. So it just seems like whatever they're close to, it kind of like makes it seem like it'd be New York City probably, or not necessarily New York, but somewhere on the East Coast.
Some metropolitan thing.
But yeah, so I really like the location of this of the story.
Yeah, so we have our lead. He's Zach Gilford. Played by Zach Gilford. His name is Riley Flynn. He left this small, quaint island town to make it big in the big city, and he's a .com Silicon Valley dude, and made a bunch of money, and then got into an accident where he was drinking and driving, and he killed a girl. goes to prison for 4 years, and now he's returning home. He's trying to redeem himself and try to find his place in the world, because what do you do now? Now you're back on the island that you always said you wanted to leave. You're kind of just stuck there. So he's reconnecting with his old flame and making amends with his parents. And we have this new pastor come in, taking over for the old pastor who has gotten a little senile, and
they sent on a mission to the Holy Land as sort of like he's always wanted to go but never could afford it. So the town all chipped in so they could send him there before he met his maker.
Everybody here is a little bit poor because there was a huge oil spill that ruined their whole fishing community, so they're only able to fish on certain days in certain areas, and there are people who've lost their homes and are renting in a home that they used to have, and there's a lot of abandoned houses from people who took settlements and just decided to leave. People who took the money, they kind of gave it back into the church, so they have this big rec center that is kind of goes unused because you only have 127 people on the island. What do you need a rec center for? Like, the school is a single classroom. The sheriff's office is in the back of the general store. We have a pretty big cast of characters.
Well, real quick, just more about the town.
Sure.
I really like that kind of stuff. I'm always interested in sort of different communities, how they would do that stuff. Like, I like that the sheriff's office was just a one room in the back of the store with one cell, because it's just like, how much crime could there be with 127 people, and they all know each other? Like,
he doesn't even carry a gun.
Yeah, and I like that aspect of it, and I liked how that played into his backstory and character later in the stuff. Like, the sheriff is one of my favorite characters of the show. I think he's so cool. And a fun little last trivia fact is they based his look off of Joel from Last of Us.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. Also, the fact that there's children on this island. You don't really see a bunch of little kids. Like, they're there, but pretty much the only kids you see are like teenagers. But yeah, like, how do you, like, when you only have like essentially 2 teachers for the entire island? Like, what's those classrooms like? Is you just like, is your first graders through your 5th graders all in the same room, and you just have to teach? Like, how do you teach that properly?
Yeah.
And so you never really get to see the classroom stuff, but I just thought, like, that's interesting. Like, how would you go about like teaching in that sort of
I bet
space?
Year to year it's different. It's like, oh well, these kids are now old enough to go to school, so we can teach these 3 children. But maybe these ones, well, there's only one that's 17, and the next person down is like 14. Well, they can't be in the same class together. So maybe there's a lot more one-on-one teaching. Yeah. And who knows?
And then, and also it's just like, so if the sheriff like goes on vacation or needs a day off to like, the town just did not have, because they didn't have like a deputy or a backup. No. It's like, his sole job is to like be the one guy everyone calls, which sounds like exhausting.
And he says he goes into the city every Friday to go to mosque to pray and stuff like that. So every Friday,
the town doesn't. So if you want to commit a crime, do it on Friday.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought that the world that established had like a lot of interesting possibilities that you never really see, but not important to the story at all. I just find that kind of stuff interesting.
But it's a lived-in character. Like,
yes.
It's a shorthand. You kind of understand what this place is like without having to go through the day-to-day with every single character. Some of our notable characters, we have Bev Keane. She's kind of the second in charge when it comes to all things churchy.
I think she has made herself second in charge.
Yes.
Whether she's
because
wanted to be in charge is the
question. The pastor was so old and getting senile, she kind of stepped up and did everything she can to not necessarily take over, but let people know she's kind of the moral and spiritual authority of this island. She has beef with a lot of other people because a lot of these people, they grew up with her, and she's always been kind of a shitty person. This is probably my favorite character because she is awful. She is like such a mean person, but in the like that nice sort of I'm just telling it how it is and how God wants it to be said, but it's so cutting and she knows exactly what to say and how to use scripture to her advantage.
Mm-hmm.
She's really an awful person, but she makes an excellent villain.
Yeah, I think she's really good. I thought you wouldn't like this character just because I know you just dislike religious stuff because you're just like, I can't believe people buy into this stuff and like this kind of these kind of people exist, and it's just I just hate them. I thought she could have easily gone sort of like ridiculous, sort of like almost Joffrey type, like to the religious, where it's just like she never appeared like just straight evil.
Mm-hmm.
She was always like she was more annoying than like awful, I thought, at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then as the show goes on, she goes into the evil route. But I liked her character in the sense like she wasn't necessarily trying to be a dick to anybody or particularly rude. I thought it was just like, these are my beliefs, and then it just doesn't vibe with pretty much the majority of people on the island. But I didn't think she was over the top, but she was like just enough to where like you clearly don't like her, but she wasn't. I wouldn't say she was a bad person at the beginning of the show.
Like they really could have done it. You know, in The Mist, the woman character.
That's
like that,
yes, thank you.
She could have gone to those levels of crazy religious.
That's who I was thinking of the entire time I was watching the show. Is like, that's who she reminds me of. But the woman in The Mist was much worse, much faster, and obviously that was a 2-hour movie, so you had to sort of ramp that up fast, and obviously a very different situation. But they were very similar. But I like this version more because she wasn't just a straight up bitch from the get go. It was like she was just kind of bitchy.
Yeah. So you have a random character that you have a doctor whose mother is really senile, and they had to move her out of her upstairs bedroom because she broke her hip and doesn't really know where she's at. You have our second lead, Aaron Green, who was a former childhood friend of Riley's.
So pretty.
Oh yeah, and she's in everything. You know, Mike Flanagan.
His wife.
His wife. You know.
Yeah.
It's like she's got a better gig than Mila Jovovich. I mean, and she can act.
Yeah, I was gonna say because this actress can act.
Yeah.
Mila Jovovich could not.
And
no offense, Mila. Big fans.
No, not really.
Not really.
I like Fifth Element, but that's about it. So she's pregnant, and she was the one that like kind of got away from the island and actually got to live a normal life, but kind of fell into the same trappings that her mom did and married a crappy dude and got pregnant, and the guy left her, and then she's back on the island living in the same house she grew up and doing the same job her mom did, and now she's feeling kind of trapped. We have a young character named Lisa. She was shot accidentally by the town drunk, and she's in a wheelchair. And the town drunk is just, the town drunk. He's got a dog, and
he's pretty much the only person who's committing crimes on the island.
Yes.
Because he just, is breaking something or like causing a disturbance, so he just spends the night in jail. And the sheriff is just kind of like, all right, bud, it's the morning time. Yeah. Get out. I hope I don't have to see you again later. And he's like, you probably
will. We have Riley's mother and father, and all the older characters are played by relatively younger actors who are not that far off from their children, but they're put in old age makeup, which comes into play a little bit later.
Yeah. And you're kind of wondering, like, why did they do that? And you find out quickly why. Some of the makeup looks great, I think, and then some of it does not. But not important.
Yeah, not super important, but it is noticeable. But everybody does a pretty good job of acting an older age. The last main character is Father Paul, played by Hamish Linklater. I always know this guy just from the New Adventures of Old Christine. He plays her brother. And
I've seen this guy in a lot of stuff. Yeah. Like he's around, but he's just never been a name.
Yeah, I would have never been able to guess his name. He's in Legion as well. He's really good in that. He really kind of steals the show. He's really kind of the lead. He has come to this small island to take over for the senile pastor.
Who he says will be back in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
He's just not feeling great. He's off island in the hospital, just trying to get better. But like as he's explaining it in the first episode, you're kind of going like, I don't know, something seems off about this.
Yeah. And everybody kind of really likes him. He is really well versed in everybody's lives, and he kind of sparks a little bit of a revival with the church. A lot of people only show up for the big holidays. You have a couple people who are there every day, and he starts performing miracles and gets people really on board with the church, even converting a younger Muslim boy to start attending Mass.
Yeah, well, let's break it down little by little. Not necessarily episode by episode, but just talk about scenes we like or moments we dug.
Okay.
So in the first episode, there's a scene where some of the local teens go to sort of like a mini island next to the main island that is just home to a bunch of feral cats. And I can't remember why. Like someone, I guess.
Yeah, they came from the mainland and they've just been reproducing.
Yeah, and so they're walking through the night, and so you just see a bunch of like cat eyes like peering through like the shrubs and stuff, and it's just like a really cool scene. Like obviously there's no real threat, but it's just like these glowing eyes that you see just like popping up here and there, just them meowing and everything. And I don't know, it's just like a real effective way to like make a scene creepy without it being like, without you ever feeling like scared, because it's just cats. And then we have a character who like looks over and sees something real quick that just looks kind of like a man with the same glowing eyes, and he like freaks out, but then it goes away, and he's just like, oh, must have just been a figment of my imagination. But like really cool little jump scare. And
they do it a couple times where someone's just looking out a window, all you see is darkness, and then the shadow moves. And I've on a couple of those I rewound, and it's like there's someone standing there, little pinhole eyes shining right at you, but you don't even notice it until they start to walk off. And it's not a lot of jump scares, but just really good ambiance.
Yeah. So what I'll say is, if anyone has seen Haunting of Hill House or Blind Manor, is that Mike Flanagan is very good at putting out a creepy vibe, but not necessarily doing a bunch of scares. Haunting of Hill House is more your scary stuff. Like if you like horror, go Haunting of Hill House. Where Blind Manor, it has hardly any scares in it, but just creates a sense of
looming dread
that is, I think, more effective. When it comes to horror, that's the stuff I look for, not okay, what's gonna make me like just
but this plays out a little different from the haunting shows, where those are like there is a mystery, there's something going on, and you're kind of jumping back and forth through time and learning of the history. This is a little more linear.
Yeah, there's not too much in the way of flashback.
No, there's one major flashback, and that's about it.
So later in the episode, fast forward, there's a big storm coming, everyone's boarding up. Since they live on an island, clearly they have to deal with some harsh weather from time to time. And so in the nighttime during this heavy storm, our main character Riley is looking out his window and sees who he believes to be the pastor who was supposed to be away, because the pastor's known for wearing this trench coat and hat. And he's like, oh, that's clearly him. He's senile. He must be like just walking out the storm. Like, I got to go get him. And he goes out there, and the figure just starts running away from him. He's like, hey, come on. And then, disappears into the night. And I was like, well, that was weird. And so that was a cool little creepy scene. Mm-hmm. And they wake up, and the next morning, all the feral cats have washed up on shore. And that's the end of the episode.
They all have like bites on them. And no blood.
Yeah. So the town just assumes that it must be some sort of
parasite, a disease, or maybe I think they said like a bunch of small sharks could have done it.
How the town sort of just tries to describe what this could be is real odd. But I kind of liked it because it just seems like something a small town would do because they're not used to anything super crazy. So it's like, yeah, it must be a bunch of mini sharks or something. The town mayor is the one who kind of keeps telling that story, and that's another thing. It's just like this town has a mayor, but you never see like his. It's like he lives in a house with his wife, and the mayor's daughter is the one in the wheelchair.
And they're one of the poor people. They were talking about like half their food they get through like government aid and donations and stuff. So it's like even the mayor of this small town is really
the guy who should be the richest one is poor as well. Yeah. But at the beginning of episode 2, where they're talking about the cats, is something I love to see.
You knew I was
going to bring it up, man.
You're going to do it.
It's like a 5-minute long uncut scene.
I didn't even notice it at first, but then I realized, like, oh, goddamn, this is outside with live animals flying around, and they were able to pull off this oneer.
Well, I looked it up, all the birds were CG.
Of course.
And all the cats were, I mean, obviously the cats weren't real anyway, but it was just stuffed animals, or whatever. So, but yes, how that whole scene was shot is something Mike Flanagan has done, and I think in both shows where he does these really long takes with a lot going on in the background, and just going the entire length of the beach and having multiple characters talk with each other. It's just great. Like, this is the stuff I like about Mike Flanagan and his work, and just about, movies in general. I love it. It's just a great scene.
So yeah. One thing in episode 1 is before we're introduced to the priest, we do see him, or like a person, dragging a huge chest into the little priest's home, but we don't know what's in it.
Yeah, is it some creepy monster? Is it actually the old pastor just in the box? Like, what could be in this thing? But it definitely, it's like, what's that gonna lead to? Well, episode 2 has Ash Wednesday. The big thing is, more people have come to church now because we talked about it earlier. They only really do well on holidays, and the pastor performs his first miracle. Everyone has communion, and the character Lisa, who's in a wheelchair, is going to take her
the sacrament, and Father Hill is holding out the body of Christ, and he's like, all right, come get it. And so she like wheels herself closer. He's like, no come, and he like moves onto steps so she can't roll up there. He's like, come get it. And everyone in the church is like, dude, what are you doing? You're being a dick, man.
You're being you're so mean. Like, well, is this some kind of joke? Like, everyone's like real pissed off, and he's like, no, just come get it. You got this. And so she tries to get up, and then she can, and she walks over, and everyone's just like, holy shit. And thus leading to everyone in town thinking like, we got to go to church. This guy is the real deal. He's making things happen.
And then other characters around town are noticing like they don't need their glasses anymore, and their back doesn't hurt as much, and everybody's kind of like feeling that, God is now on the island and really kind of helping all of them.
We get a little bit more into the doctor of the island, her life. She is on a date at like a town.
It's like it's the Ash Wednesday crock-pot thing.
Potluck. She's on a date with another woman, and you see the pastor sort of like eyeing her up, and she's like, yeah, the pastor's looking at me the same way as the old one. Like, I don't think they really vibe with lesbian or gay people or whatever.
And she's just kind of waiting out her mom's death because she doesn't want to take her mom off island because this is all she's ever known, and she knows she doesn't have long for this world, so why make her last days hard? And so she's just kind of waiting for her to croak so she can move on, which is kind of like, I get it, totally do your own life thing, but it's like, if she leaves, they don't have a doctor on this island.
Well, it seems like most of the time whenever someone gets injured, they would just send them to the mainland anyway. True. That's where they go for all their hospital visits. Just like, oh, we need something quick, or like a opinion of, do I need to go to island? Yeah. This is just a lady you call on. Yeah. But yeah, like the fact that there's one person for like everything is just ridiculous. Yeah. So anyway, moving on. Well, anything else you want to talk about? Should I bring up more stuff?
I don't think there's anything that important. It's a lot of like, oh, I forgave you, and then you did this, and now I don't forgive you, and it's hard for us to get back to lives when your past has done these things. There's just a lot of like more backstory of characters.
Okay. So eventually, somewhere down the line, we see the true origins of Father Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out in a flashback sequence, you have this old man who the original pastor, Father what's his face, he is in Jerusalem, I guess, and he
walking in the footsteps that Jesus took.
Yes, and he is with a group of other religious men, and he has been known to wander off, and they bring him back, and then one time he wanders off, and they don't notice that he goes missing, and he just ends up walking into the desert, and there's a big sandstorm, and he's walking, and then he sees like this cave sort of entrance and walks in, and it's dark in there, and he thinks he hears something, and has the Conjuring scene where he's like flicking on the match and just lighting up the area, and then we see those
little pinhole eyes
in the darkness, and he freaks out.
It's just still, and you don't know what it is, and then they blink,
Mm-hmm.
and then he drops the match, and
once again an effective shot.
Great.
And then you get that classic jump scare of flicks the match, things like right in his face,
mm-hmm.
and then bites him.
Turns out it's a big old vampire.
Yep.
Big old winged vampire too.
Yeah. So he's getting his blood drained, and he is dying, and then he wakes up, but he's not dead.
Nope.
And he walks out into the light, and he is now a young man who you find out is Father Paul.
Yep.
So the old preacher or pastor is the new one in disguise,
and
essentially.
So, and he doesn't see this vampire as like some evil monster. He sees it as an angel,
which is another cool shot. Like you get a shot of the vampire, and there's like this halo of light around him. And it's like, oh, this must be an angel, especially with the wings and everything.
Yeah.
Which I like. What do you think of the design of the vampire?
I thought it was good enough. It was simple.
Yeah.
The thing with wings is they either look like too CG or kind of cheap and flimsy, but they're fine.
Yeah, I think like the problem is it just sort of looked like your classic vampire in terms, well, not Dracula classic where he's like a guy in a suit and he's like, ha, ha, ha. But it's like a more of a Nosferatu kind of style. It's very plain and simple, but like I thought all the makeup was perfectly good, and I liked. Honestly, he looked creepier in the clothes.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
with his long fingernails and stuff. Yeah. So anyway, after being sort of reborn, I guess like Jesus, and saved by this angel,
and the blood of Christ.
Oh well, yeah. So I guess as he was being bitten and dying, this vampire angel decided to spare him. The vampire cuts himself and then puts the blood into his mouth, thus making him young and healthy again. And he says that this vampire like talks to him in his mind, and I guess the vampire wanted to get out of this cave because
he's like just trapped in the middle of the desert.
Yeah. So Father Paul transports him to his parish because he believes that this angel has come to Earth and has saved him, and it's his mission to save the people of his town and revitalize, bring the town back to its former glory with the help of this angel. Yeah. And this is probably like the one weak point of the show, because it just seems like this vampire has like this. It almost seems like this vampire has like this grand plan, but you never hear the vampire like talk. No. It just seems like it's just doing vampire things. Yeah. Like it's all more like, I guess, Father Paul's plan that just goes like haywire.
Yeah, I think it's more like, hey, you get me out of this situation. Like, you owe me. I saved your life. You get me out of here, and I'll help you do whatever you want. Just as long as I have access to food, I'm fine.
But yeah, you don't like get an origin story to this vampire. You don't know if it's the only one, where it comes from, why it exists, or anything like that. It's just this thing that could cause the end of humanity.
Yeah. So Father Paul has been taking his blood and putting it into the wine that they use for the blood of Christ.
So that's how the town has been healing and getting younger and everything. And I find it interesting that this thing is like essentially the embodiment of evil, but for whatever reason has, well, I guess like because it heals itself. Why wouldn't its blood have healing properties? Or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, all vampires are able to heal, and it's like they do a different sort of thing where, because in a lot of vampire lore, it's if you get bit, then you turn into a vampire. But then at other times, it's like, well, you get bit, you can just be drained, and you're perfectly fine, or you're turned into like a mindless zombie sort of person. You have to actually drink the blood of the vampire in order to turn into it. So instead of like, because the bite is almost like the thing that kills you, and then the blood brings you back. Well, for this time, you get the blood first, and so you kind of get the powers, you get everything, and you don't really turn until you die.
Right. Okay. Yes. Gotcha. And that's like a fun thing about just, well, maybe not fun, but the crazy thing about religion, particularly, I guess Catholicism, is, you know, you have this like religion where in order to like ascend to heaven, you have to like eat human flesh and drink human blood, and obviously like it's just wine and
come a little closer.
It's just wine and crackers and everything, but it's just like there's horrifying elements in the Bible and everything that we just like accept. It's like, no, this is like kind of fucked up stuff.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's like it's a horror movie.
I did it for you. I mean, I had to take classes in order to be able to do it, because I mean, if you walk into a church and you go up to do it, they're not going to be like quizzing you or anything.
Yeah.
But if you're part of the church and they know you haven't done your communion and stuff like that, like I had to go through fucking classes to be able to do it, and it's stupid.
Yeah, when I was younger, I had to go to class every Wednesday after school. So it's like I got out of school and then had to go to another school once a week.
Yep.
In order to, you know, get my communion and all that stuff.
Are your parents Catholic?
I think my dad's Protestant. My mom is Catholic.
That's funny. My mom is Catholic and my dad was Methodist, and then my dad actually paid for classes to convert to Catholicism. Like, he had to go through these classes to do it. It's like, all you have to do is say you are. As long as you believe, why do you have to pay for classes? And he's part of like I was gonna say the Knights of the Old Republic. That's a different thing. Knights of Columbus. He's like part of their old man group of helpful Catholics. It's so ridiculous.
Well, my mom, I think, was only religious. Like, she's not religious now. Like, no one in my family really goes to church. She was just like, I don't know if this works, but you're gonna like get baptized on that stuff just in case there is a hell.
Hedge your bets.
Yeah, it's like it's not gonna hurt you to do this thing. But I just remember being a kid and like just hating, like having to learn all this stuff, and like I didn't care, and it just seemed, I don't know. Even then, I like couldn't really buy into it, and maybe if my parents sold it to me more, I would have been into it. But like my dad did not give a shit, and my mom was the one who cared, and was just like, just get through this, and we never have to go to church again, kind of thing.
Yeah, one of the shitty things for me, like I actually bought into it for years, like even into my like early 20s. I was like, yeah, God is good and great and made us all and blah blah blah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know this about you.
And I had friends who didn't believe, and it was just like it boggled my mind, like, how do you not? This is like a no fucking brainer. Of course this is the blood of Christ and a cracker turned into his flesh. But it wasn't until like I moved away from my family and my friends and I was on my own and working, just pretty much it was like I'm on my own and I'm working, and I didn't know a lot of people, so I spent a ton of time in my head, and I was really able to kind of just like start picking things apart, and I was able to like kind of unbelieve all of it after a while.
Yeah, like if you hear it every day and like, you know, you're praying at dinner time or like maybe even not every day, but you're going once a week to like, and you're having these people reaffirming what you were taught from a young age. You're just like, okay, like makes sense. That's what I've known this whole time. And then, you know, you just either you know, you're not hearing all the time or you meet other people with different perspectives and it's like, you know, you kind of have more time to decide and you're like, oh, this is, I see why this is silly.
Yeah.
No offense to anyone who is religious, but
no major offense. You're dumb, and you're just believing in imaginary friends.
Well, you've had your communion stuff.
Yeah.
I was gonna say when I go to heaven, you don't.
I've been baptized and stuff. I mean, hey, as long as you get a few moments before your death for you to go, I'm sorry, God, will you forgive me? You're right as rain.
You know who? We're getting off track, but you know what character was shitty in the movie, but I actually respect quite a lot. You remember Benny from The Mummy?
Okay, yeah.
Who was just like that real sleazy guy, and then when the mummy was gonna come get him, he was like, he had all the chains of all the different religions that he was just like saying all of them. It was like, I like that guy because he's just like, look, man, like I'll be religious if it gets me into heaven or whatever, but I'm not gonna choose one. I'm gonna choose all of them.
Yeah.
And so
That's great.
So that's what, if you're gonna be religious, just be all the religion.
Pick them all.
Just pick them all. Anyway, everyone in the town is now fully bought into this, except for Riley, really, and
the doctor, the sheriff.
Yeah. Well, the sheriff's religious. He's just Muslim. His son is now interested in it because it's like, look, like, yeah, we're Muslim or whatever, but like, this religion has like proof that this stuff works.
And I didn't ask to be Muslim. You made me Muslim.
Yeah. And everyone in town is this religion, and like we're new here, and I'm just trying to make friends, and it's just like it's the thing, everyone's doing it kind of thing, and his dad's just like, look, I don't care if you go to church or whatever. He like clearly didn't want him to like denounce his Muslim faith or whatever, and I actually, well, we'll get into it, but he
was saying just don't take the sacrament and stuff.
Yeah, just don't, do.
You could go and participate to an extent.
Yes. But there's a scene, which I want to talk about, where the
Bible in school scene?
Yeah, the Bible in school scene.
Yeah.
Where your Bev Keane character, the religious fanatic, gave out Bibles to the kids, and he comes in and it's just like, hey, like, I don't think this should happen. And he's like, if I was giving out the Quran to the students, you'd all freak the fuck out. And he's like, and I didn't know this about the Muslim religion. It's just like, we believe Jesus existed and everything. Like, we like you guys. Like, we're cool with all this stuff. It's just we also believe other stuff.
Yeah, there's just more that happens at the end of this that you guys don't believe.
Yeah. And I just like that whole interaction and everything. It's just like, look, I don't care that, if he wants to like go to church and learn about read the Bible, like I'm all for it, but I just don't think you should be given out in schools. And even the Riley's love interest, what did you say your name was? I forget.
Something Green.
Aaron Green. Aaron's like, yeah, I agree with that guy. And then Bev did her whole speech and sort of like deflected and all that stuff.
She's so good at just going like taking what you say, mixing your words around, shoving it back in your face, and not really addressing the issue you have.
And she's like, I can't believe you think so little of me that I would kick you out of town for trying to pass out the Quran. Like, if, the kids were interested in that, like, that's kind of fine or whatever. So it's like, as a teacher, my job is to educate the children. And it's like, if I want to start the day off with a passage from the Bible, it's not to convert anybody or, like, trying to, like, get them into religion. It's just, like, I want to pass on my good feelings onto them or whatever she said. Yeah. And it's just, like, the show does a good job of showing, like, how people in religious positions turn the narrative to try and like make them not seem like dicks or anything. It's very, very much a political game. They just is like, all right, you said this thing about me, but what about this thing?
Yeah.
So,
and the show they do it like 1 to 2 times, like in every episode, is they kind of like stop and just talk about some big philosophical idea of
what happens to you after you die. Both Riley and Aaron have a huge conversation of their thoughts on what happens when you die, or what does God mean for this. Riley has to go to AA, and the pastor has made it so they can do it in this church, so he doesn't have to go to the mainland once a week. And they just have like a huge conversation about why he thinks why he lost religion in prison, and all these terrible things that happen that God can change but chooses not to. And everybody is okay with all these bad things happening as long as they can justify it with, well, God has a reason for everything. And they're really good in every episode of just kind of like stopping and just having a conversation. And they're really well written, and they're not groundbreaking in what they're saying. They're things that I've heard before, but it's nice that they take the time to argue both sides of it.
Yeah, I don't think the show makes religion necessarily seem bad or good or whatever. It's just like, this side has bad things. It's not saying, don't go to church, but it's just like, there is some inconsistencies or whatever.
And Father Paul is, it's really interesting when he's not preaching to the congregation, and he's just having a conversation. He's like really calm and level-headed about it and just has a regular conversation. But once he gets up there, he starts getting heated and starts getting like evangelical.
Yeah, I mean, I like those scenes in really in any sort of religious movie where you have someone at a podium and like really speaking passionately and everything. Whether what they're saying is nuts or not, I just think it's a great chance for the actors to really like show off and really deliver these like long, big monologues. And I think he does a great job in all the scenes that he has those. Yeah, but when he's like not preaching and everything, he's just having one-on-ones with everybody, it just seemed very much like the cool teacher, like turn the chair around and it's like, hey kid, let me talk to you about this thing. And just like it almost seems like he's like trying to recruit them by like being cool, but at the same time it's never played like he's not trying to convert anybody or anything. It never seems like that, but at the same time it's like I can see why people go to church, because here's this guy who shows interest in me, who genuinely cares, and who seems to have some answers. And unfortunately, I think for a lot of people, like that's how they get you to come to church.
Yep.
And then bad things happen.
Let's start bringing it home. So what's the main goal, the main plot that our father is trying to do?
So on Easter, they're gonna have a midnight mass, and he promises a huge miracle, and everyone in town is excited about it.
And he's doing it at night now because he's
been getting sick, and now he's actually feeding on the blood. The weaknesses of vampires are happening, so he can't go out during the day. Yeah. The Father Paul does murder a character in one episode.
One of the things that I hate so much in movies where people are having an argument and they fight and someone falls backwards and hits their head and dies. I hate that. Nobody ever just falls on the ground, falls on their butt. They always have to hit their head on the corner of a table and die.
So we do see Father Paul has turned into something. He's not like shape changing by any means, but he clearly needs blood to sustain himself at this point. So he has become, by all intents and purposes, a vampire. But for the most part, he's just been surviving off of the main vampire's blood and stuff, correct?
As far as we know.
Yeah. And sort of Riley has figured out that something the past Father Paul has said like doesn't make sense, so he goes back, and that's when we see the vampire in all of its creepy trench cloaked glory being in there, and the vampire kills Riley, and we're just like, oh shit.
It's one of them after he comes back and they have their long discussion. That's some of the best stuff of this season, of them just kind of going like, this vampire shit is bullshit, and like, no, well actually there's precedent in the Bible for this.
So Father Paul kind of explains everything and just like, I met this angel, you're a vampire now or whatever, you can't go out during the day, and so everyone's freaking out like Riley's been missing for 12 hours or whatever. He was supposed to come over last night, and we have this scene that might be my favorite scene. Like, I love the long take stuff, but I just like this moment in the show where Riley comes and meets Aaron. He's like, hey, come out on the boat with me. And I never really believed he was going to harm her, but at the same time...
But she thought maybe potentially he might. Like, oh, you brought me out where I can't get away. There's nowhere for me to go.
Have you seen the It's Always Sunny, like, implication memes?
Yeah. But it was more for him like, no, there's no place for me to go.
Yeah.
Because I need to confess everything that the priest has told you, and then I'm going to prove that what I'm saying is not bullshit.
So they're out on this boat, and he confesses everything, and he's basically just like, I can't do this anymore, and I don't want to hurt anybody, but you're the person who can, like, save this town. And they're saying this as the sun's coming up, so you know, like, oh shit, like, Riley's about to die. And I thought this was such a great little, like, thing where the sun comes up and nothing happens, and he, like, opens his eyes because he's prepared himself to die, and you're like, oh wait, like, what's going on? And then he looks across the boat, and it's the girl that he killed, and she's smiling at him, and he grabs her hand, and they kind of, like, move upward, like, oh, so, like, this is kind of like his ascending to heaven moment, and then immediately cuts to Aaron just screaming in horror because he's burning alive in front of her or whatever. And I just thought it was, like, such a great cap to an episode, and I just really love that scene.
And you just hear her screams as the credits roll.
Yeah. Really awesome stuff. So anyway, now we have the midnight mass. Aaron has gone to
the doctor.
And the doctor's just like, yeah, I've been doing experiments because, like, my mom just keeps getting younger and everything, and
all the blood I store by the window is just bursting into flames.
Bursting into flames, and she's like, I want to take it to the mainland. Let's get off the island. We'll get proof, and everything will be cool. Like, something's off here, and it's all gonna, like, happen at the church tonight. So we got to get off the island. But all the boats
are gone for repairs.
Yeah, every boat on the island doesn't work. The power goes out. The ferry that ships them off twice a day is just like, oh no, the ferry's not moving today. And the mayor decided to not have it happen because of Easter. It's Easter and stuff. So certain members of the church have been helping the pastor. Like, they found out that he murdered somebody, that he is something else, and they're just helping him plan for this big event. You don't know what it is. So now, like, literally everyone in town, well, probably 50% of the town is now at this church, if not more. And the pastor has this big thing, and it's just like, all right, everyone's going to drink this fluid, and you're going to die, and I promise you're going to come back and you're going to be resurrected. And one guy who's, like, a supporter just drinks it, and everyone in church, like, watch this guy die, and they're like, fuck this, we're at, like, well, especially the sheriff goes because he's like, I'll go with you, son, but I'm gonna, like, it's just a watch out for him, really. And then he's like, no, fuck this, we're out of here. And then they turn around, and then you see the vampires standing in, and it's just, like, another cool shot. Really great stuff. And so everyone watches this, like, creepy 7-foot tall bald white figure, like, stroll through the thing, open up its wings. The town freaks out, and it's like, oh shit, like, are we seeing a real fucking angel here? And
then the guy comes back to life.
And so everyone's just like, all right, I'm a believer. And so everyone, or not everyone, but majority,
the cop's son is the first.
The cop's son takes it, and a bunch of people in the church start taking it. Everyone's, like, puking up blood and dying and everything, and then some of our main characters are kind of, like, not buying into, like, something's off here. Riley's parents, Aaron, the sheriff,
Doctor and her mom,
and so then everyone starts coming back, but now they're all thirsty for blood, and so then it becomes this Kingsman scene where everyone in the church is just, like, massacring each other, and then our main characters escape. And then it becomes, and they're like, we gotta get off the island. This is crazy. They shoot Bev Keane.
And she's like, you know what, go ahead and shoot me, and in 5 minutes I'm gonna come back anyways.
And they're like, cool, we got 5 minutes. Boom. Which I like. And then then it becomes, it's really an homage to a bunch of stuff, I feel like, and maybe this was unintentional, but it just reminded me of 30 Days of Night, where half the town is vampires and they're killing the other half of the town. So all the people at the church are like going around to anyone who didn't come to the church. They're breaking into their homes and
the father didn't want anybody to leave the church because he was going to like kind of guide them in what they are supposed to do. But he got shot in the head, and so as he's recovering, Bev is like, "Fuck it, open the doors. Let's go out there and just let's get them all. If they're not part of the church, well then they're kind of our enemies." So.
Yeah, they're sinners.
Yeah.
So then
they start burning down houses to like they're hunting down our lead characters, and so they're trying to burn them out of their house, and someone like sacrifices themselves in order to let them get away. And at first they're like, "Oh, we got to put these fires out," and then like, "No, there will be no place for them to hide. They'll have to come to us." So they just burn down everything except for the church
and the rec center.
And the rec center, because they're all going to gather in the rec center when the sun comes up, and that will be their safe space.
And then the next day, they're going to bring their religion or their...
Yeah, they're going to get on boats and go to the mainland and spread the word.
So if our heroes don't stop them tonight, then the whole world is in danger of becoming vampires.
So they actually, like, destroy boats that, like, may be functional. They just needed, like, a key or something like that. They destroy it so they can't get off the island.
So now all the vampires can't escape. But they're like, okay, well, we're still cool. Like, we have the rec center and the church would stay in there and we'll be safe from the sun. But then the pastor burns down the church. Well, yeah, he doesn't, but he allows the church to be burned down.
Yeah, it turns out that the doctor was his daughter.
Which I thought was... I like that twist.
Nice
That's the one twist I didn't see coming.
I didn't see, yeah. And he was kind of like, yeah, I fucked up. Go ahead and do it. But she gets shot. They try to save her by making her drink his blood, and she just like spits it out. Nope. I was like, nope, let me die. So they burn down the church, and then the sheriff and Aaron are pouring gas all over the rec center, but Bev shoots the sheriff to stop him.
But she didn't shoot the deputy.
Because there is none.
Yeah.
And then our main vampire guy grabs Aaron and starts feeding from her. And as he's doing that, they set it up a little...
This is the part I didn't really love.
Yeah, she slashes his wings so he can't fly away, and he doesn't really do anything about it, and you would figure that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But earlier...
Yeah, they established it. Like, he doesn't feel pain, apparently.
And when he's feeding, he's focused on it.
Yeah.
They're shooting him with bullets and splashing gas all over him, and he's pays it no mind because he's focused on feeding.
Yeah. So they established in the show that, like, him slashing her wings won't bother him, or at least like he starts to get bothered by it. But she's like, which I liked.
Like, no, baby, get back in there.
It was real hot, real sexual. No, but I just thought like, okay, this is a little silly. Like if someone was constantly like, if a cat was scratching me as I was like eating dinner, I wouldn't go like, well, this is so good, I'm just gonna take the scratches. I'd be like, no, get the fuck off me.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a little silly, but it was fine because they set up the...
They heal pretty quickly, so I would figure his wings would heal. But do we see him burn?
No, but I'll get to that.
Okay.
So they burn down the rec center, nowhere else for the vampires to go. They all kind of realize like, shit, we're gonna die, and they're like, man, like we fucked up. Like the one kid's just like, man, I think I killed my mom.
Yeah.
Like these people like killed their family and their friends because like they just needed to drink blood, but what I liked is like some of them who did get turned into vampires, like Riley's parents, they were just like, no, I'm not gonna kill other people. Like they stayed true to themselves. It was just. I just like that. It's like some people, they just couldn't resist the temptation, and other people are like, no, like that's not who we are, so we're not going to do that. And then the sun comes up, and we see the sheriff and his son. They, do their
prayers.
Their prayers. So they died.
Yeah,
Muslim.
Like the father bled out because he's been shot twice, and so he dies, and the son was still doing his prayers as the sun was coming up.
Which I thought was a nice little moment because of their struggles in the show. we didn't even talk about his backstory, which was I really
that was
liked.
a good thing.
We can get to that.
No, he was a Muslim and a cop, and after 9/11, he was promoted a lot, and then they realized,
he could be a terrorist.
He could be a terrorist. Now they demoted him, so he was all gung ho to go to a small island.
Yeah. And they all sing like this beautiful hymn as the sun's coming up. Aaron dies looking up at the stars, where she had some big monologue about
what happens when you die.
Yeah, and Bev Keane is just like panicking because she's like, she knows her death's coming, and then she's like on the beach and she's like, no, I still want to live, and she's like scraping the earth to try scraping the sand to try and get in. I was like, that's a great little, like, of all the people who deserve some sort of terrible death, I guess she was the one who had it.
Because everybody kind of accepted it, and she was not.
So the sun comes up, they all burn, and it's just
every single person on the island except for two.
Yeah, Riley's little brother and Lisa, the girl in the wheelchair, die. You see the vampire fly away, and they even say, like, oh, do you think it's gonna, like, make it to land? And they're like, well, it's 30 miles. Like, I don't think he's gonna make it because his wings are all fucked up. And we don't see the vampire burn or die or anything, but I think that the vampire dies because the girl says, I can't feel my legs. And so I think that's how we prove that the vampire died. Because they said this is a limited series, there isn't going to be season 2. But the fact that you don't see the vampire burn, it, like, could easily lead to season 2 if this got popular.
Yeah.
Because you could have done a thing where, like, oh, there was a boat in the water somewhere, and it, like, landed and like, then hid in the boat until nighttime.
Flipped the boat upside down and stayed in the water.
Yeah. You could have done something like that. But I think because she couldn't feel her legs anymore, that proved that the power of the vampire was no longer available. Which
I thought was what they were going to do. I didn't expect them to kill everybody on this island. I thought some people would be caught in the sun, some people would be beheaded or whatever, but they would kill the main vampire, and then, Riley's parents would survive, and, like, some of the people who were not deserving of this would have their curse lifted.
Yeah.
Even though it was really never established that, you kill the head vampire, everybody turns normal again. I mean, because there's two ways about it. It's either, like, you kill the head vampire and you turn human again, or you kill the head vampire and you die. It just depends. So that's how I thought they were going to save people, because when Aaron got bit, it was just like, oh no, she's like our lead. Of course, she's got to survive, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, she's going to kill it, and then certain people will survive, and then they'll have to live with this guilt. And they're like, nope, whole island, everyone burns.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that I'm not sure if I really loved, well, it still works, but it just kind of seemed like Father Paul's turnaround. It just seemed like 1 minute he just seemed like this evil character, and then he got shot and came back, and like you said, like, he just wanted to keep the doors closed and whatever, but, like, he was just doing all these awful things for the whole show, and then, like, in the last 10 minutes of the last episode, he's just like, no, I fucked up, I'm sorry, forgive me, and then it's just like, okay, I do, and then he dies. It's like, well,
I really wish I would have gotten to know my daughter. I guess I'm a good person now.
Yeah, it just seemed like his arc was a little unearned by the end.
Sure.
Even though I like that actor and everything he did this season. But yeah, I think the best thing about Mike Flanagan and all of his content is it's horror, but it's horror with heart that has stuff to say. I like all the dialogue. A lot of things I saw online where people complaining, it's like, oh yeah, here comes another, like, Mike Flanagan, like, deep, like, long speech about something that seems deep but really isn't. It's just like, oh, this show has too much talking. It's like, I liked all the talking.
Yeah.
Like, give me a show with, like, thoughts and ideas that has horror elements than just a horror movie that's just like, how do I just brutally murder someone or try and make you jump? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
So where would this rank? I mean, do you have anything else to say?
Or? Not really. But for ranking, like, I like the Haunting series better.
Yes.
I really like those characters, and it is a bit smaller of a cast, and you have a more interesting mystery, and he's really good at overlaying, like, ghosts and the past and the present on top of each other, so that all these stories are kind of running congruently. Like in Bly Manor, there's a part where, like,
someone lifts up a dress and like the arms come at you, and it's just like kind of a jump scare, and then you find out in the episode later of like in the past of someone like putting on the dress, and it's just like, oh, these two things are kind of just happening at the same time, and he's really good at that, and this is just a little simpler, and it's not a fault, because I think this could have gotten a little, artsy fartsy like some of the other ones are, but I mean, compared to Hush and Oculus and everything, like this would probably be something I wouldn't revisit, but I would recommend, but not like my boss, big horror guy, loves Bigfoot, werewolves, and found footage movies. So he's very much of like, I want to see a monster and I want to see it, rip people apart. And it's like, he'll like the monster here, but he wouldn't like all the talking, and he's like, all that religious talking and stuff, it's boring me.
Yeah, because even though it's a vampire story, it's really not about the vampire. It's about religion and like how people can turn around and like what it means to people and what it means to be alive and dead and all that kind of stuff. Like it's got all these thoughts. It's just based around a monster character. So it's not for everyone. No. Or it's like if you're looking for scary, it's not gonna be that. But I'm with you. I think it's his least work that I would revisit the least. Hill House is a masterpiece, and Blind Manor didn't get as. Blind Manor is better than a lot of people gave it credit for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I've never seen his movies, but I definitely want to check them out now. But yeah, Black Mass, worth a watch.
Midnight Mass.
Ah, damn it! Midnight Mass, worth a watch. Check it out if you like horror and just good quality television.
Yeah.
And I mean, where would you rank it in terms of other vampire things you've seen? Because I mean, like the vampire itself is pretty standard.
Sure.
So like that's not really that interesting, but
it doesn't change the game or anything, even though it does. Like it does and it doesn't. Where in some, and I'll talk about this when I talk about my vampire rankings, but like there's three kind of thoughts when it comes to vampires, like the religious, the scientific, and the supernatural. And this one is very much in the spiritual stuff, but it doesn't. Usually that's like the anti-vampire stuff. You go to a church to be safe. You use the holy water. You use a cross to ward them off. And none of that applies to this.
Which is something I never really thought about, but I like that idea of just like, church being the thing to protect you from, this thing that comes from the devil. But it's like, nope, you can walk in there, you can touch Jesus, you can... although, I guess apparently there's a part where there's like during the Midnight Mass, Jesus that's on the cross is covered up.
No,
like
that's what you do on Easter.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
You cover the cross.
See, I need to learn these things. Okay, never mind. But, yeah, I like that idea of here's this thing that used religion to get at you, which is cool.
So it's definitely like it's different enough without completely rewriting lore.
Yeah.
So it's good, and it's what we need more of when it comes to vampires. When most vampire stuff is just very basic.
Yeah.
What would you like to see Mike Flanagan do next? Do you want him to stick in the horror stuff and do another, like he did Ghosts, and he's done Ghosts in multiple movies, and now he's moved on, okay, now this is a monster. Do you want to see him handle a different type of monster, or do you want him to go to a different genre?
I don't know. It's like, when someone's really good at something, it's like, why do you need them to...
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you want to see someone break away and do other stuff. It's like, I want to see an actor take on different things, or maybe a writer to take on something else. But, like, if you're a director who's just, like, knocking out of the park with, like, horror series, just, like, if you can keep up that quality, give me more of that stuff.
Yeah.
At least for me, because horror is a genre I don't like, except for, like, this kind of stuff and very specific movies. And if this is the future of horror and sort of more thought-provoking horror with creepy tone, I'm all for it. Like, so I would much rather see him make more stuff that I like that isn't in my wheelhouse than, you know, make a drama. It's like, oh, yeah, I like dramas and stuff. Like, I doubt you're going to do anything that changes the game. You'll just make a good drama. Cool. But, like, if you make a cool horror story that I normally wouldn't care about into something cool, then I want to see that.
Yeah, I would like to see him stick with horror, but maybe do, like, the cosmic horror thing. And since he's good with faith and theology and stuff, well, what about, like, existential dread of the bigger...
Lovecraft?
Yeah, all the Lovecraftian stuff. I'd like to see him take this and go bigger with it. Do it an Event Horizon sort of thing.
Okay.
Like have you seen Event Horizon?
I haven't, but you and our other friend have pitched me Event Horizon multiple times.
And Event Horizon isn't really a good movie, but it's fun. But do that, like, well, hell in space. Cool. Let's do that, or do a Color Out of Space, or any of those sort of cosmic horrors. I'd like to see him go bigger.
Go bigger and lean more sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it might be a little outplayed, but I guess sci-fi horrors also. But if he did, like, sort of a period piece, and not necessarily like something like Woman in Black, you know, Daniel Radcliffe,
yeah,
whatever, anything like that. But, like, when you said Cthulhu and stuff, like, if he did what Del Toro was trying to do, and, like, do the story of the man who, like, goes into the Mountains of Madness or whatever and, like, discovers Cthulhu, like, if you make that story, cool. Like, that's kind of what I think a lot of people were hoping for when we heard Lovecraft Country on HBO. Still a great show, but definitely not anywhere where people thought it was going to go. Yet, like, Lovecraft is something that people have wanted to see for a long time. I think he could bring in something really interesting and make believable characters in that world. Just show me, like, a bunch of weird shit. Because Cthulhu's the most famous one, but there's tons of, like, ridiculous monsters in the Lovecraft universe.
Yeah.
Launch that universe. Make it weird and fucked up, but also thought-provoking.
And, I want all of that. But I could also see, like, if he did something simpler, like The Witch, where it is period piece,
right?
You know, horror. You know, a witch is, you know, I could see him doing Salem Witch Trials or anything like that, where people can talk and go like, "You're a witch," and then having people, like, trying to explain themselves. I think that could work.
Yeah, I think he could take on witches. I think that'd be the next step if you've done Ghost and
Ghost, Vampire, Witch, whatever.
I think that would lend itself the easiest, because you could sort of, witches don't have a ton of established rules, so you could really go a bunch of different ways. And I never saw the original Blair Witch Project, but I watched the new one with you not too long ago, and I really liked the time elements of that.
Yeah,
I thought there was some real effective stuff in that found footage movie. So if he could do something along those lines, that'd be cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I think that's about it. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining us in the Whirlpool. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we are at WRPLpodcast@gmail.com and at WRPL Podcast on Twitter. Let us know what you're consuming. Until next time, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
Goodbye, everybody.